Hua Wanyue's heartbreak without a scar just barely stopped Han Bing. Han Bing, who was greatly drained of magic energy, vomited blood. Having been shot away by the power of the hero star's arrow, Han Bing looked to Ling Feixue, as if she was confused how her star general could not stall Hua Wanyue. But when she looked, she noticed that Ling Feishue's body had already become a pincushion. She was completely powerless to continue battle. The earthly star for Heavenly King relied on staunch willpower to finally drag herself to the front line for Han Bing. Bitch. Xiuxiu descended from the sky. Her body was as cold as ice, as if she was lifeless. With her contractor injured, the similarly affected Zhang Feiyu raised her flaming fish king saber in near madness. These days she did not care for her appearance, which was slovenly. The foul-mouthed boatman currently was truly infuriated. Enduring her battered and tired body, she used her swordsmanship. Han Bing was inwardly flabbergasted. She did not plan to hold back, but now she suddenly felt a powerful aura flying quickly towards this place. The entire forest was suppressed by that aura, a deathly silence. Purple thunder monster. Han Bing's heart jumped. She was greatly astonished that blue-faced beast was somehow unable to slay the purple thunder monster. Could it be that she had been defeated by the purple thunder monster? Han Bing was very clear on Yang Zijin's strength, but she was similarly aware of how abnormal the purple thunder monster was. Regarding Li Taisui's recruitment of the purple thunder monster, Han Bing was not willing to have faith in him from the very start. Now that the purple thunder monster was returning, Han Bing also knew that continuing further like this perhaps would result in her retreating not in one piece. Glancing at the already motionless Xiuxiu, Han Bing believed that her terrified to the bone had already destroyed the opponent's life completely. She would not live for much longer. It seems there will be no possibility for collaboration now. The corner of Han Bing's lips curled slightly. Without any hesitation she shouted, "Xian Lao, we are leaving now. Feishue, return to the star nest. Next time, Feishue will definitely use her cannon to best your bow and arrow fair and square." Ling Feishue was very indignant, instantly returning to the star nest. Han Bing waved her hand, retracting all of her powers. Withdrawing, vanishing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. "Where are you going?" Hua Wanyue shouted furiously, firing an arrow. Powerful killing intent exploded out of her bow. A channel was ripped open through the White Tiger Territory's skies, forests, and oceans under the influence of this 10,000-li god-killing arrow. The arrow disappeared into the horizon, and faint shriek echoed back. Hua Wanyue inwardly grit her teeth. She set the heaven-earth-sun-moon bow down, already showing a weary appearance. Xian Lao and Gong Sun Huang battled fiercely. Xian Lao borrowed the White Tiger Territory's increased gravity, using the power of the 5 sacred mountains, suppressing Phoenix Execution Skybreak, but in the end Gong Sun Huang's Phoenix Execution Skybreak was still victorious. She completely shattered the entire zone of pressure. Finally, Xian Lao also had no choice but to flee far away through the earth. Instantly, Han Bing and Xian Lao's presences had already completely disappeared, leaving not a single bit of regret. As it happened, not long after, that aura that made Han Bing afraid appeared suddenly in the sky above. As she had thought, he was none other than Su Xing, who had rushed over as fast as he could. Xiuxiu and Han Bing's battle honestly had lasted quite a while. Su Xing had rushed over with all his power, but Han Bing relied on the White Tiger Territory's topography to launch a lightning-fast battle. In the end, she had forced the 2 top-notch star generals Gong Sun Huang and Hua Wanyue into completely using their earth ranks. Even so, they were unable to hold off Han Bing. "Xiuxiu!" Su Xing shouted in worry. He appeared in front of Xiuxiu hugging her. In that brief touch, a biting cold sensation reached his internal organs, making Su Xing shiver. To be able to make a supervoid cultivator feel cold, it was obvious how vicious this technique of Han Bing's was. Su Xing grit his teeth, immediately opening the meditative mind lotus flower, pouring its potent magic energy into Xiuxiu's body, protecting her meridians that had been invaded by the chill. "Zhang Feiyu." Hua Wanyue was stunned. She saw Zhang Feiyu was tottering on the edge of collapse and promptly propped her up. The boatman was completely exhausted. The mortal blow her contractor sustained had also nearly severed her life, but the girl did not despair or show dejection. She looked at Xiuxiu and instead had a sort of feeling of relief, as if as long as he was here, Xiu definitely would be okay. That unprecedented feeling of comfort made Zhang Feiyu weakly smile. Xiuxiu, I leave Xiu to you. If she is all right, then this Feiyu shall offer her own body as recompense. You had better return to the star nest to recuperate. I'll take care of things here. Xiuxiu sternly said. Zhang Feiyu had wanted to laugh a bit. She vomited a few mouthfuls of blood before she finally was left with no choice but to smile wretchedly and enter the star nest. Your Highness. Gongsun Huang blinked. Seeing Xiu's appearance, she showed a concerned expression. Forgive me, my lord, please punish me. This is because I was unable to protect Lady Xiu. Hua Wanyue begged forgiveness. Xiuxiu shook his head. He did not want to entertain this subject any further. He continuously poured magic energy into Xiu, sensing just how formidable that cold was. That biting chill was cold even to Xiuxiu. Finally, he was barely able to preserve Xiu's meridians using the meditative mind lotus flower, but the remaining trace of ice cold did not abate. No matter how much power Xiuxiu used, he was unable to dispel it. Even Xiuxiu could still feel the cold bite back. At this moment, Suan said, Big brother, this way cannot dispel it. Instead, you will harm yourself. Little sister, do you have some countermeasure? Xiuxiu asked. Perhaps you can use the yang energy of a fire element medicine or magic energy to counteract it. And Suan answered, Fire element? Xiuxiu paused. He remembered the fire spirit magic Sarira. Immediately opening his mouth, a completely red Sarira was spat out. He then placed it in Xiu's mouth. As expected, Xiu's chilled body warmed up greatly. Sir. Xiu was muddle-headed. Curling up against Xiuxiu's chest, it was clear she was still unbearably cold. Not enough. Are there any other fire element materials? Xiuxiu was somewhat worried. Fire element materials? Master, are you not searching for the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian? Yan Yizhen gently reminded her master. And the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian spirit should work. And Suan muttered a bit. Good. Let's go kill that clinging heaven Vermilion Jian right now. Xiuxiu carried 11 Yu, very distressed to see the shivering Xiu. Kill the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian? Tang Lianxin was a bit concerned. A divine bird like the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was already not so easy to face. If Lin Yingmei or Wuxia were here, to kill it would perhaps not be a problem. But because they had considered only to obtain the feathers of the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, the panther head and pilgrim did not follow them to the white tiger territory this time. With just the few of them, killing it would perhaps be somewhat difficult. However, at this time, there was already no one who could stop Xiuxiu's determination. Little Huang Wanyue properly recuperate. Perhaps there will be some difficulty in a moment. Xiuxiu said with concern. Little Huang sat on Xiuxiu's shoulder. The leisure star's most beloved recuperation was perhaps to quietly sit on his shoulder and watch the wind blow the clouds away. Hua Wanyue nodded and sat cross-legged at the bow of the star-riding boat, quietly looking into the distance. Just when Xiuxiu changed his plans to kill the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, he nevertheless did not realize there was already a girl one step ahead of him. An extremely remote mountain range in the White Tiger territory, only a range of 100 li compared to those motionless mountains across several tens of thousands of li. Those grasses across several tens of thousands of li. This was no more than a small hill. This hill was named by the White Tiger Demonkin as Clinging Bird Hill. This hill was not large, and the trees of the grove here were not lush like the ancient forests. The trees of Clinging Bird Hill were as red as fire. Even the brush was a fiery red. The fauna that lived at this Clinging Bird Hill had hair like flames. Most were fire element beasts. And upon entering the range of Clinging Bird Hill, the temperature would skyrocket to 100. The air contorted as if it was being broiled, and the temperature was stifling. But this did not amount to anything. The oddest thing was that at the top of Clinging Bird Hill was a large tree. It was 1,000 zhang tall, its trunk very thick. Several hundred people would be needed to wrap around it. This large tree grew tall and straight, and its canopy was lush. Each leaf was shaped like a flame, as if it was on fire. From far away, it seemed that Clinging Bird Hill was in the middle of a conflagration. This tree's name was Clinging Wood, which was a prehistoric fire element tree. This treetop was aflame. There was a bird's nest the size of 1 li. It was unclear what it was constructed from. With a sweet scent, the grass was a fiery red color, but it nevertheless released rainbow vapors and lights. A magic and propitious cloud lingered around the nest, which was also covered by the tree's leaves. Even if someone stood underneath the tree, they would not be able to see the bird nest above. From far away, Zhao Hanyan inspected that bird nest. As the legend said, while Clinging Bird Hill appeared tranquil, it was the most dangerous of the White Tiger Territory's 5 great forbidden grounds. The divine bird perched atop that enormous tree was the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. This divine bird's power was unmatched. Even a human metamorphosed demonkin could not carelessly provoke it. Even before they had stepped into the Clinging Bird Hill's range, Zhao Hanyan could feel a sort of pressure. Princess Highness, have you actually properly considered giving Xiuxiu a pleasant surprise? The woman beside Zhao Hanyan was mighty, yet her words and conduct carried an enticing feeling. Junqing, what do you feel about this princess' intentions? Zhao Hanyan smiled and asked back. Dong Junqing shrugged and looked to that bird nest, eager to give a try. It was clear that the 5-tiger General Steadfast Star General of Double Spears was already full of a willingness to challenge it. That man is truly fortunate to have found such a good wife and princess. What a pity that he nevertheless loves to womanize. But this general likes that. Dong Junqing laughed. Zhao Hanyan was helpless. Although the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was frightening, Zhao Hanyan wanted to test the extent of her tacit understanding with Dong Junqing for the star duels. She did not know how, but having known Xiuxiu for so long, her old will to fight had greatly dampened. It actually seemed as Junqing had said. She seemed to have a married couple's satisfaction. This is not good at all. Zhao Hanyan slightly sighed in her heart. Just as the Lingyan princess was about to step into Clinging Bird Hill, she suddenly sensed a presence fly over from far away. That presence was not of the demonkin. It was an ordinary cultivator who had apparently also come to challenge the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. Could it be that man has already come? Dong Junqing twitched her lip, feeling this was regrettable. Zhao Hanyan wrinkled her brow. The newcomer already appeared in front of her. Clad in a red robe, with red hair and a fair and graceful countenance, he honestly was someone familiar to Zhao Hanyan. Only he was not Xiuxiu one. Recall that while technically is a word that can mean clinging, in context, it is actually fire. The wretched Futu could not lighten up a single bit. On the contrary, his expression became even more conflicted. Futu and Zhao Hanyan were familiar with one another. Their relationship could not be said to be close, but neither were they strangers. Regardless, Futu had been called a genius ever since he was young, and Zhao Hanyan was also a stunning and outstanding genius cultivator. Over a very long period of time, Zhao Hanyan and Futu would always be the topic of comparison in Liangshan continent's high society. There was even a rumor that Emperor Liang already had intentions to betroth Zhao Hanyan to Futu. Their families were well matched. From an outsider's perspective, this was naturally logical. However, after Futu became a cripple, this dazzling rumor finally stopped. Afterwards, Futu disappeared, and everyone even forgot about this matter. But Futu did not forget. Zhao Hanyan's beauty in the Great Liang dynasty and her own talent were both breathtaking, catching the eyes of countless Great Liang dynasty princes and nobles. Futu was no exception. It was very difficult to say what pushed him through life-threatening crises after he entered the White Tiger territory in search of an opportunity. His determination to not be a haunting ghost, or his attachment for a certain person, to support continuing that rumor of a match made in heaven when he returned. After he learned that Zhao Hanyan joined the star duels, Futu had felt a pang of regret. He meticulously shunned this matter, and did not seek out Zhao Hanyan to reminisce first thing. Futu thought of 1,000 different ways to meet Zhao Hanyan again, but he never imagined they would meet up so suddenly, to unexpectedly encounter each other at Clinging Bird Hill. In that instant, Futu thought he was seeing things. Little sister Hanyan, why have you come to this place? This princess heard that you had joined the White Tiger territory, Futu. So Hanyan has come to see just how exceptional the White Tiger territory must be, for that just and righteous man in Hanyan's memory to switch sides. Zhao Hanyan slightly smiled and said, "However, congratulations are in order. Yi Futu, you have entered Super Void stage." These words suddenly sounded ear-piercing to Yi Futu. All of a sudden his heart flared with fury. Although he had finally broke through to Super Void, compared to Zhao Hanyan's recent arrival at the peak of Super Void middle stage, he was still a bit lacking. "Humph, this Futu has also heard that you and the Purple Thunder Monster have a dubious relationship, little sister Hanyan. Ah, little sister, you must see him clearly. To put yourself and your family with a monster whose origins are unknown. Be careful that the gains do not make up for the losses. Really, thank you for concern, Futu. Humph. Princess has already given her body to Xiuxiu. In body and heart, she is already his. You are a bit too late to drive a wedge between them." Dong Junqing guffawed. Yi Futu's eyes widened. He dared not believe this. His fists clenched tightly, his knuckles turning white. He forced himself to endure the indignation in his heart. You unexpectedly gave yourself to the Purple Thunder Monster. Hanyan, how could you be so foolish? Must this princess ask you for permission on anything? Zhao Hanyan coldly said. You will reap what you sow. Yi Futu said. Yi Futu, you are the one who shall reap what he has sown. Zhao Hanyan retracted her smile and sneered. You have betrayed the Azure Dragon territory, schemed with the Demonkin. Do you honestly believe there is a good ending for you? The Azure Dragon territory already considers you a disgrace. And what would you understand, Lingyan princess raised in your ivory tower? Yi Futu could not hold back his anger and shouted. Your servant has suffered countless hardships. Must your servant bear your criticisms for anything? In your servant's eyes, the Azure Dragon's insignificant people are not worth a mention, unable to be compared with the generosity of the Demonkin. It seems that this princess must properly teach you a lesson on behalf of little sister Lingxi. Make you wake up. Zhao Hanyan shook her head. Futu, there is no need to say anything more to her. Here, we do not need to fear her. A flash of light. Hao Bingxin appeared indignant. Oh, to teach a man a lesson. Then leave it to this general. Dong Junqing licked her chapped lips, an appearance of 800 years of discontent. Her hands fiddled with her dragon phoenix yin-yang spears as she spoke. This general's spear is already starving. So shameless. Hao Bingxin snorted. Yi Futu was somewhat hesitant. The first reason was that he knew Zhao Hanyan's star general was a Five Tigers general. Hao Bingxin absolutely was not her opponent. Although he had trained his skills in real combat to react to a situation like this, Zhao Hanyan's strength still made him relatively fearful. Secondly was Zhao Hanyan herself. His heart was faintly still unwilling to hurt Zhao Hanyan. However, from Zhao Hanyan's perspective, this hurt perhaps was arrogance, maybe even wishful thinking. Yi Futu, it has been so long. Why not let this princess see to what extent you are at? Hanyan is very curious. Zhao Hanyan narrowed her eyes, as if she was smiling. It would be better to let Junqing star duel with you, see how long you can last, Yi Futu. Lingyan princess, you are honestly egotistical. Fine then. Futu also wants to know in these years of absence just what skills that famous Lingyan princess have developed. However, if you lose, do not blame Yi Futu for deflowering you, to not miss old affections. Yi Futu coolly said. What old affections? If my husband heard this, he would be suspicious. Zhao Hanyan slightly smiled. However, Yi Futu, if you lose, then this princess asks that you understand your own situation. Die you. Hao Bingxin was already extremely angry. This was the first time she had seen the ordinarily composed and refined Master Futu, so out of sorts, ill at ease, envious. She shouted and dexterously swung that enormous sword that did not suit her age. Dong Junqing was already impatiently flying through the sky, her spears in her hands. She ravenously beat her way over. You two can chat with this general about passions. Hao Bingxin's star beast codfish jail completely possessed her body, making the little lowly appear as delicate as snow. In a split second, she engaged her battle potential innate skill, revealing her pride as an earthly star for great heavenly kings. At the instant Dong Junqing suddenly stabbed forth, She flashed to Dong Jianqing's flank. The giant sword in her hand flowed like a ribbon. Just by slightly raising it, a bone-chilling cold rolled over. As if the giant sword blew an ice-cold breeze, it blew into Dong Jianqing's body. Interesting. Dong Jianqing chuckled. She knew this was the Magnificent Star's yellow technique, absolute Psi ice dust. Although the Magnificent Star was merely an earthly star, she possessed an exceptional innate skill like the heavenly majestic star. She was the fastest at growing mid-battle. If this was the Dong Jianqing from before, perhaps she would be inattentive, but having lost her virginity, Dong Jianqing already fought all out in all battles now. Before this silver light could taste blood, General of Double Spears Dong Jianqing's Dragon Phoenix Yin-Yang Spear swept over. She judged that her opponent's speed was exceptional, and that her martial arts sense was frightening. Hao Bingxin naturally did not feel she could rely on a single absolute Psi Ice Dust Yellow technique to easily defeat her opponent. Her attack just now was not at full power, still leaving margin for a retreat. Following a whirl of her massive weapon, the paths the silvery sword drew were no longer in a straight line. They became countless different trajectories. Then Junqing shall also give little sister a yellow technique to tantalize little sister's excitement. Dong Jianqing's hands gripped her spears. She quickly attacked, her wrists twisting the Dragon Phoenix Yin-Yang spears. The red and yellow double spears danced like a dragon and a phoenix. In Dong Jianqing's hands they quickly changed. Then a large Yin-Yang spear light slashed twice in the air at extreme speed, flowing like a cyclone towards Hao Bingxin. Yellow technique. Yin-Yang cross slash. In just an instant, her unstoppable attack was shredded by blinding rays this concentrated spear light brought. Hao Bingxin's expression became stern. Far from as comfortable as Dong Jianqing was earlier. The steadfast star's attack was more sudden than she had imagined. The perceptive little lowly very quickly realized that while she appeared to be toying around, in actuality, this Five Tigers' general elder sister was already ready to kill her in a single spurt of energy. Damn it. Loathsome. Hao Bingxin used her massive sword as a shield, retreating backwards at the same time, barely preserving her life. The spear light poured down like a great storm, forming a defined zone. Only at this moment did Hao Bingxin finally react. With a look of disbelief, she turned her head to see that Dong Jianqing had appeared behind her. She used the yellow technique while it still lingered to intercept her escape route at high speed. What kind of damned reactions were these? Was this a Five Tigers' great general? Hao Bingxin's expression changed, but the girl did not give up. She had a rare support-type star beast. The lowly was slashed by the spear, but she did not back down. Rather, she once again excited her potential. Instantly, a series of pure, silvery white afterimages pounced at Dong Jianqing. Don't underestimate me, bitch. Hao Bingxin hacked at Dong Jianqing. At every angle, every gap. She was swift to the extreme, surprising even Dong Jianqing. Dong Jianqing's pupils shrunk, and her figure flashed away as light as smoke. At the same time, that line of sword afterimages smashed downwards. Each ray of silver was like a blooming flower. Blinding sword light soared several dozen meters in all directions, then vanished into thin air the next second. Intercepting rays of light flew out from the twin spears in her hands, clashing continuously with metallic ringing. When the battle was left only with the sound of the wind, both of the fighters had withdrawn at the same time, standing about 50 meters apart facing each other. As expected, the White Tiger territory is a precious place to learn through experience. It seems that little sister has been taught well. Dong Jianqing smiled in admiration. Her smile was very flirtatious, very charming. Several droplets of blood dripped down from her spears onto the ground. They appeared extremely eye-catching on the withered grass. When she came to the White Tiger territory, Dong Jianqing already sensed that this terrain was a challenge for martial generals. Now, it seemed that the four great heavenly king before her eyes indeed had real skill. That defeat last time at Yang Zijin's hands seemed nothing special. No way. How can I lose to her? Dong Jianqing licked the blood on her spear. Hao Bingxin grit her teeth. They had only exchanged a couple of blows, but she surprisingly had a feeling of strain. She did not answer to this provocation, as if she was more calm than Dong Jianqing had thought, but she vigilantly monitored her each and every move. At the same time, she took the opportunity to check her wound. One was a cut on her arm, and the other was a cut across her cheek. Both were only very shallow flesh wounds, completely unable to influence her ability to continue fighting. Even if she knew that these were not major wounds, Hao Bingxin still wrinkled her brow. In just a fleeting exchange of blows, this elder sister was able to find a gap using her spearmanship that combined attack and defense together, ingeniously counterattacking. If she then continued to use the same style, perhaps her wounds would not be so easy to shrug off. A Five Tigers great general was indeed fully deserving of their reputation. This is truly irritating. Even if she continually used powerful techniques, combining them perfectly together, Dong Junqing still could evade them without sustaining injury. Furthermore, whilst evading, she could injure Hao Bingxin. This kind loathsome reaction speed truly was more troublesome than those demon beasts. As if I would be afraid of you. Hao Bingxin once again raised her sword. Meanwhile, Futu watched the two-star generals battle. His heart was also fully focused on memorizing the Five Tigers generals' attack patterns. As expected of the highest-ranked martial generals of Maiden Mountain's 108-star maidens. For opening attack and defense techniques to surprisingly already be proficient to such a degree in Yifuta's eyes. Those swift attacks seemed as unruffled and calm as Xiuxiu was when they previously sparred. A heavy sigh rose in the spectating Yifuta's heart. It seemed that defeating Dong Junqing would be somewhat difficult. Yifuta looked again at Zhao Hanyan, and found her to be seemingly aloof. She merely smiled as she watched the battle, as if victory was at hand. Of course the Lingyan princess would be absolutely self-confident. At the core of the star duels, a star duel was just like this, a confrontation between Zhao Hanyan and Yifuta's martial generals. However, Zhao Hanyan spared the Star Master's portion. Zhao Hanyan took no action, but Yifutu did not dare be too trusting. After all, the opponent's cultivation was higher than his. Any action taken rashly on his part would instead make the situation even more dangerous. His heart had a burst of indignation. He inwardly clenched his fists, biding his time. However, that just now was only a warm-up. Dong Junqing curled the corners of her lips. Then, she suddenly leapt at the lowly with her spears in reverse grip. Starting now, this general shall face you seriously. You talk too much. Hao Bingxin clearly shouted, defiantly raising her silver sword tip towards the spear light falling from the heavens. The instant the weapons collided, countless dazzling sparks were scattered. Two fleeting figures once again sunk into battle. However, this time was somewhat different. Hao Bingxin did not dare linger where she stood for too long. Rather, she made herself run along with the dancing motions of her giant sword. It was very difficult to imagine that a little lowly's petite body was capable of swinging that giant weapon around as if it was an extension of her arm. The sword was like a part of her own body. This kind of ease impressed even Dong Junqing. Dong Junqing's expression changed, and the praise in her eyes turned into killing intent. A crisis loomed. The atmosphere turned silent. Hao Bingxin's gradually became cautious. Without any warning, Dong Junqing's aggression suddenly magnified. The airflow and sword light in front of her suddenly dispersed. Countless rays of spear light instantly obscured her line of sight. In the fluttering light rays, Dong Junqing's graceful figure suddenly rushed out at Hao Bingxin. The double spear she held flashed with ice-cold, intersecting rays of yin and yang. Bloodlight suddenly appeared. Hao Bingxin already was putting all her power into defense. But though her reactions were fast, she was completely unable to evade this attack. Her jacket ripped, and a long gash already appeared under her ribs. Blood flowed out from the wound. A slight numbness instantly rolled through the girl's whole body, nearly killing the star beast codfish jail possessing her body. But Hao Bingxin's reactions were so fast. If it was anyone else, they probably would not have been able to even consider it. But Hao Bingxin possessed a star beast, and was already able to make decisions others could not imagine. Without thinking, the little lowly firmly stamped the ground. Her apparently frail body had powerful leg strength. The strong force instantly dug into the ground, and the surrounding zhang of earth seemed to violently quake. Borrowing the enormous recoil, Hao Bingxin's figure already flew back several dozen meters. Dong Junqing's brows were knit together. as if she was unable to believe this one blow was surprisingly unable to kill the star beast. She did not expect that with her skill, she would surprisingly fail. She had believed things were in the bag. However, Dong Junqing did not hesitate. Anything could happen in battle, nothing could go the way she pleased. This kind of matter did not need any consideration. After a moment, Dong Junqing immediately continued to press the attack. An intense whirlwind promptly appeared on the ground. The vegetation on the grass was stirred by this whirlwind, showing a perplexing scene. In this scene, a terrifying dragon and phoenix cry instantly resounded. Fittingly, Dong Junqing wielded the dragon phoenix yin-yang spears with beautiful posture. Hao Bingxin lowered her body, making her entire figure stick completely next to the ground. The girl was as fast as lightning, instantly crossing the distance of several dozen meters, breaking free from Dong Junqing, somersaulting along the ground. The little lowly's martial arts had already gone through a round of battle with Su Xing's party. At any rate, she could be considered experienced. In terms of aggression, she was not afraid of Dong Junqing. She swung her sword directly down towards Dong Junqing's body. A loud whoosh of wind flooded the area. Even the surrounding trees were uprooted by the gust lifted by the giant sword. A white dragon flew out of the sword. White dragon leaving sword tip. Hao Bingxin's dark technique and Dong Junqing's dragon phoenix double spears danced. That indistinct figure suddenly shuddered, surprisingly vanishing before Hao Bingxin's attack reached, as if it never existed in the first place. This made the little lowly's attack become completely useless. Hao Bingxin's eyes flashed with a pale light. Bang! White dragon leaving sword tip ripped the surroundings completely to shreds. Rip rip. Shredding sounds echoed continuously. Countless slim shadows shot out from Hao Bingxin's surroundings. Flickering, strange lights suddenly shot towards the girl. The world seemed to become blood-red in her eyes. She could clearly sense danger. Hao Bingxin lifted her sword and spun. The tip of her blade drew a silver-white light that stuck to the ground, lifting up. The sword-tip's silver light wrapped Hao Bingxin's body tightly within. All of the thin spear lights were blown asunder by this. Hao Bingxin's surroundings were a complete mess. Danger! Hao Bingxin suddenly shook. Dong Junqing surprisingly appeared behind her at some point in time. Pain came from her back when the double spears swung down. Futu was finally unable to wait. He roared, flying head-on to catch Hao Bingxin. Just when Dong Junqing's spears hacked at her, he barely saved Hao Bingxin from those spears. Dong Junqing stopped her pursuit. Due to Futu's curious and unbelievable gesture just now, she calmly asked, "It appears you have some ability, quite like a certain someone. The magnificent star's innate skill is battle potential. You should not be too lacking." Futu's face was grim. The palm of his hand was completely soaked in Hao Bingxin's blood. "Be careful, this elder sister is very formidable." Hao Bingxin's eyes gradually recovered their clarity, and she vomited blood. "Can you continue?" Futu asked. Hao Bingxin nodded, but further combat would be more fatiguing. Because Dong Junqing had already killed her star beast codfish jail a moment ago, Hao Bingxin was very depressed. If she had known earlier, she would have used her earth rank. "Do you concede defeat?" Dong Junqing twirled her spears. The two magnificent weapons were as light as paper in her hands, exceptionally graceful. "Concede defeat? What is the point of continuing the star duels if we admit defeat here?" Futu coldly said. "It has been a very long time since I have seen such an interesting star master." Dong Junqing's voice carried a very faint sense of admiration. This was not like arrogance, more like an acknowledgement of strength. "Then come." After Futu settled Hao Bingxin, he resolutely faced her. At practically that instant, Futu excited his battle potential. The extreme fire flying swords immediately spiraled around to attack. While the flying swords entangled Dong Junqing, in the next second, Futu fully displayed his speed. Instantly the air let out an explosion. Futu had already vanished without a trace. Dong Junqing's brows rose. This kind of speed is not bad. She did not hesitate to turn around. Her double spears swept aside the flying swords, and she used the spears to clear an area around her body. She knew that regardless of how quick he was, his final objective was only to injure her. And to injure her, he must inevitably come to her. The five-tiger General Star Maiden's judgment was indeed accurate. From just Yi Futa's last-second rescue of Hao Bingxin, Dong Junqing knew that this detached man's strength was not bad. Chain-like flying sword shadows appeared instantly from the surroundings, covering all of the space behind her. The mighty and powerful shadows seemed about to tear space apart, violently tearing up the ground. As expected, Yi Futu appeared. But the man would not actually go contest a five tigers' great general in battle strength. He merely used his speed for a chance to try confusing her. And while Dong Junqing was defending, immediately used Vermilion Bird Blackening Flame. Instantly, the plains were covered with a red cloud, pervasive flames. In the middle of the omnipresent Vermilion Bird flames, Dong Junqing's paths were thoroughly obstructed. At this moment, a silvery white shadow attacked. Hao Bingxin burst out with her trump card. The flickering snow-white shadow of a giant sword looked like the sickle of a reaper, full of killing intent. Without any apprehension for the blade attacking her from behind, Dong Junqing put strength into her legs and somersaulted. Her movements were efficient, swift as lightning. Dong Junqing lifted her head. She used her double swords to block the enormous sword. Metallic clanging resounded. But this was not the end. Yi Futu immediately activated a flying sword array. If anything of a star master's was to be labeled as the greatest threat to a star general, flying sword array would undoubtedly be the first choice. Several dozen flying swords formed a perimeter in front of Dong Junqing and attacked. Although she parried with her spears, the flying sword array began to become a threat. Dong Junqing was left with no choice but to step backwards. Just when she withdrew, her foot spun, and Dong Junqing once again vanished. She used speed to face the sword array. But Hao Bingxin was not so easy to handle. The little lowly caught onto Dong Junqing's tempo, her giant sword firmly entangling the steadfast star. The silver sword tip fluttered, and Dong Junqing parried. Her double spears attacked when suddenly at this moment, Yi Futa's figure crouched low and fiercely leapt forth. The air whistled harshly. Yi Futu instantly reached frightening speeds, suddenly scattering sand and pebbles. In the dust, Yi Futa's silhouette abruptly burst out, immediately attacking Dong Junqing. Although she was very astonished Yi Futu would personally take action, Dong Junqing was not flustered. One of his palms was wrapped in vermilion bird flame, and already mercilessly thrust out, pushing towards the figure in front of him. Then there was another frightening exchange. If it could be said that the confrontation between them just now was one of pure speed, then in this merciless battle, power had become more important, so much so that it was the crux of life and death. This was completely reliant on full power, a matter of death and of youth, because it was extremely rare for a Star Master to dare directly face a Five Tigers general in the star duels. But at this moment, Yi Futu already did not ponder too much. He thought only of settling things quickly while Zhao Hanyan was acting arrogant. It seems you have been taught well. Dong Junqing retreated. Yi Futu used the vermilion bird flame to already seize the advantage. The man continued his assault, but while Dong Junqing continued to retreat, she sneered at the same time. Then this general shall toy with your boldness. She crossed her double spears and faced the combined attacks of Hao Bingxin, the flying swords and Yi Futu. Dong Junqing suddenly exerted her strength. Yi Futu immediately noticed that Dong Junqing's dragon phoenix yin-yang spears seemed to come alive. The dragon and phoenix began to circle around her body, as if they were granted a second life. Yi Futu was too late to think about this strange scene. His attack absolutely could not stop here. Excessively powerful force was completely unstoppable on its own. Just touching it was enough to permeate the target. Each time the double spears nipped, they would shower the plains with light that rose into the sky. Immediately afterwards, the light flow pouring out from the spears tyrannically crushed the opposing attacker's whole body, making Yi Futa's body and soul let out a mournful wail. She had surprisingly warded off the combined efforts of the two of them. Even so, their intense wills to fight still suppressed their pain. They continued to clash with speed that could not be tracked with the naked eye. Then each slash made Yi Futu feel trepidation. The attack of the woman in front of him was very surprising in its tyrannical nature. Her pair of spears was wielded with increasing leisure, increasing magnificence. The double spears were increasingly lively. Several hundred exchanges of offense and defense instantly passed by. When the man's eyes finally adapted to the dizzying Dragon Phoenix double spears, he realized the reason they surpassed common sense. His complexion immediately changed. Dark rank technique. Luan Phoenix Cry, Dragon Slaying Cave. A Five Tigers Great General's dark technique. In the face of this challenge, Futu was unafraid, breaking out into laughter instead. Their attacks had been easily warded off by Dong Junqing. When the double spears attacked, their power was focused into the spear tips. When they blocked, the backflow of the collision onto the spears was like the shadow of a phoenix rapidly flitting about on the spear. Regardless of where its master attacked from, no matter from what direction the enemy attacked, it could timely appear at the most precise spot and perfectly accomplish its mission. The phoenix defended, the dragon attacked. This was both the sharpest sword and the strongest shield. Futu never had this kind of feeling, and his battle potential had unwittingly and surprisingly erupted in his blood. Futu suddenly spun errand, raising a vermilion bird flame. In his hand appeared the Seven Feathers fan. He did not hesitate to wave it. A ripple spread out from the fan, carrying a rippling firelight and wind shadow. Surging flames like a phoenix rushed out from the Seven Feathers fan, forming an unending force to strike the opponent. It was any defender's nightmare. It was obvious they could pierce through rock, to say nothing of the accumulation of this power. Dong Junqing clearly was very surprised. She suddenly twisted her spear, finally ending the Dragon Phoenix double spear dark technique. As far as a star general was concerned, magic weapons were the thorniest problem. Better than a flying sword array by a tad, but the eccentricity of magic weapon abilities nevertheless was impossible to guard against completely. Dong Junqing did not expect that Futu would use the Seven Feathers fan so quickly, let alone spread its fire so pervasively, but in fact, each burst of flame that knocked against the target brought about powerful pressure. Dong Junqing could not ignore it. In the counterattack of a gale and storm, there was suddenly a black figure. Then this shadow brushed against Futu's cheek and flew by, leaving a trail of blood along his temple. What? Futu's pupils suddenly contracted. Seeing Futu use a magic weapon, Zhao Hanyan finally made her move. The 72 Outer Void Flying Immortals swords emerged, breaking Futu's sword array. Then, the flying sword spun around, returning for another attack. Futu was careless. Dong Junqing appeared in front of him already. She easily sent Futu flying. Futu. Hao Bingxin kicked and immediately flew off. She hoarsely called her star master's name. If this continued, they would most definitely die. Hao Bingxin ground her teeth, clenching her sword. Her eyes spouted the fires of fury. Just as the girl was about to advance for an assault, a hand patted her shoulder, stopping her suicidal charge. Futu stood up, already completely covered in blood. His expression wore powerlessness, but a light that did not concede defeat refused to be extinguished. Outstanding! As expected of the man who contracted the magnificent star. You indeed have guts. Dong Junqing said, impressed. Perhaps she glimpsed a certain person's figure in Futu. This amazement was genuine. Futu, are you still unclear about your end? Zhao Hanyan graciously urged. It is not too late to turn back. Nothing good will come of you following the White Tiger Demonkin. Futu sneered. He was always aware of what joining the White Tiger territory Demonkin signified. Zhao Hanyan, how about you mind yourself? Do you think the Purple Thunder monster will provide you with any favors? He is merely exploiting you. Zhao Hanyan did not want to discuss this with Futu any further. She found this topic to be completely meaningless. The two of them shared no common experiences. Neither could convince the other. In the end, they could only fall back to their own choices. I see. Then there is no choice. Zhao Hanyan said. However, Futu, if you are willing to join us, Hanyan will very happily agree with you. It is far too early for you to be arrogant. You cannot comprehend Li Taisui's might. Futu was cold. In the 3 heavenly books, the Purple Thunder monster will inevitably become everyone's target. At that time, you will have to consider about yourself. How stubborn. Dong Junqing gripped her double spears and watched the heavily injured Yi Futu. Following Zhao Hanyan's actions, the result of the star duel between Yi Futu and Zhao Hanyan was very clear. Seeing Yi Futu was still enduring, Dong Junqing's speck of friendliness also vanished. When she raised her double spears and slashed, Hao Bingxin blocked in front of her. That massive sword dexterously danced in her hands. Silver-white light flowed over her body. Hao Bingxin grit her teeth, her snow-white pupils full of pride and sternness. Bang bang. A crisp cracking sound echoed, a completely unimaginable intense reaction. Dong Junqing's spear seemed calm, but it was in fact matchlessly tyrannical. The defense of Hao Bingxin's silver snow dragon abyss broke as easily as an eggshell. The trajectory of the dragon and phoenix were like flashes of lightning in the dark, fleeting. The gale surrounding the two suddenly swelled, blowing hard. What a terrifying attack. Her pupils shrank, and Hao Bingxin's expression turned grave. But it was at this moment, as the magnificent star mulled over the strongest spear attack, that she was excited. Her body hung in midair, her leg deftly spun, and she drew a beautiful, graceful, breathtaking circle. Like a spinning top, she blew a gale in every direction, unexpectedly surprising Dong Junqing. Take this last move. Yi Futu shouted. The star crest on his forehead shimmered. Resonance. He resonated with Hao Bingxin. The two of them resonated, immediately multiplying the ferocity of Hao Bingxin's technique. Without any fancy or superfluous movements. The most pure attack of killing intent. Puchi. A gleaming white light that was like the world's most beautiful crescent drew a magnificent arc in the air, attacking Dong Junqing. Earth rank technique. White night desolation. An endless white light attacked. Dong Junqing immediately used her dragon phoenix double spears to block, but the earth technique under resonance was unimaginably powerful. The cold killing intent made Dong Junqing unable to react in time. She could only rely on her martial general instincts to dodge. In that instant, Dong Junqing's eyes reflected only the scene of a white death. In the girl's mind, the face of a man nevertheless appeared. How can this general lose to you? Roar. A tremor, a din. The killing intent passed. Everything resumed its calm. Victory. Hao Bingxin panted. Her hands shook, and the silver snow dragon abyss seemed to whine in her hands. A figure that stood as erect as a statue made Hao Bingxin very dejected and full of despair. Phrase omitted due to censorship. Yi Futu, this princess shall give you one last chance. Zhao Hanyan's tone became stern. Hanyan, see you again. Yi Futu did not hesitate to use his jade pendant. He stared fixedly at Zhao Hanyan's face, as if he was taking one last glance, but also as if to make her remember. After he was gone, Zhao Hanyan could not help but heave a sigh. This general has disgraced princess. Dong Junqing knit her brow, somewhat in pain. The resonated earth rank was indeed as strong as a heavenly star's earth rank. How can you blame yourself, Junqing? This is because Hanyan did not take any action. Zhao Hanyan shook her head. Anyway it was put, Dong Junqing faced the teamwork of a four-great heavenly king and Yi Futu. Zhao Hanyan also knew of Yi Futu's capabilities. The Dong Junqing who occupied the absolute advantage was already overwhelming enough. She feared that this would make Yi Futu very dejected. Princess, you seem quite fond of him. Dong Junqing said oddly. Regardless, he was once this princess' imperial brother. Zhao Hanyan said self-righteously. And Yi Futu himself is as you have seen. His heart is not bad, but because of what he has experienced he has changed greatly. Dong Junqing thoughtfully grunted. From the battle just now, she indeed sensed that Yi Futu was a very ambitious man. To surprisingly dare fight a Five Tigers general in close-range combat was exceptional, but it is a pity he ventures in the wrong direction. Dong Junqing disdainfully said. To align with the demonkin he betrays himself. On this point, Junqing will never approve. To be frank, princess, to invite him to join Su Xing was perhaps not too wise. Zhao Hanyan gave a self-deprecating smile. Yes. Now it seems that facing the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian will not be so easy. Zhao Hanyan smiled and said. Their battle with the magnificent star was not dangerous, but it wasted much of their star energy. To confront the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was unwise. Princess, are we not preparing a pleasant surprise for our man? Dong Junqing smiled. Junqing, it appears even if this princess wanted to, she is too late. Zhao Hanyan was helpless. Dong Junqing was confused. He has come. Zhao Hanyan gently said. Dong Junqing broke into laughter. One innuendo here. Right arrow curving left 2. SFX. Liao Emperor, Yelu Wuxin sat cross-legged atop Kaifeng's heavenly sacrifice pagoda. This tower was 9,000 zhang tall, able to overlook the entirety of the vast capital of Kaifeng. In front of her was a record of a beast swallowing the heavens. Yelu Wuxin was currently stooped over a yellow scroll covered in dust. She looked through it meticulously. Despite the surrounding howls of wind, the girl was nevertheless as calm as water, not minding this irritating atmosphere at all. On the contrary, she raised her head from time to time, looking down at the bleak city with some grief in her eyes. Yelu Wuxin had established the Great Liao in the White Tiger Territory years ago. Kaifeng was the White Tiger Territory's sole giant city-state. It once was home to tens upon hundreds of thousands of demonkin. It was structured with innumerable streets, uncountable districts, heavy traffic. It could have been described as bustling. However, following Yelu Wuxin's defeat, Kaifeng was sacked. This city declined, and today, its people were gone and its buildings vacant. There was not a soul in sight. It had become a true ghost town. Qiner Bauer, and we must make Maiden Mountain star generals pay the price. Reading the Yellow Court. Her usually ever-present right and left hands were absent. Alone, Yelu Wuxin felt even more lonely. She lifted her head to gaze at that heaven-supporting mountain that not even the White Tiger Territory was unable to obscure, her heart frothing with resentment. What a sweet little girl, truly a pitiful sight. I wonder how you will taste. Just as she was reminiscing, suddenly, an evil air surged in the atmosphere. Black clouds rolled, transmitting mystifying laughter. Before it could speak, there was a loud crack. The black clouds in the sky gurgled like boiling water and parted. Above the sky, a magnificent painting of mountains and rivers unfolded like a mirage. The mountain was tall as the sky, its waters cascading down, boundlessly majestic, awe-inspiring. Yet Yelu Wuxin was unmoved. Her hand gripped the yellow court, and her eyes narrowed, still maintaining her amiable appearance. She did not see a person's figure. There was only the suspended scene of the mountain and river, the odd laugh. Immediately afterwards, the magnificent scene of the mountain and river slowly became an illusion. It lasted for a breath's time. The giant mountain had surprisingly emerged from a painting, flying spectacularly towards Yelu Wuxin to crush her. This mountain was gigantic, unexpectedly covering the entirety of Kaifeng. As the mountain drew closer, it seemed as large as the sun or moon. In the blink of an eye, it crushed towards Yelu Wuxin. This shocking power would make even a top-notch cultivator pale in the face. Yelu Wuxin was unfazed. She maintained her imperial posture. You would surprisingly refine the ancient Mount Tai into a magic weapon. Not bad, not bad. You have imagination. The ancient Mount Tai was a famous mountain in the White Tiger Territory, also known as the White Tiger Territory's first divine mountain. It contained an imperial ley line. Although the Mount Tai before her eyes was even more massive than what she saw previously, to be able to refine it to this extent made Yelu Wuxin unable to help but give praise. Petty tricks by an amateur. Yelu Wuxin saw that the heavens had been completely covered by the Mount Tai mercilessly bearing down upon her. She sat at the top of the pagoda, smiling warmly. Pointing her hand upwards, the scroll in her hand unfurled. A yellow cloud flew out, forming an array. High above, it blocked the mountain. No matter how viciously this Mount Tai exerted itself, it was unable to descend further. Break? Yelu Wuxin rose, gesturing with her hand. That yellow cloud array burst, and the array began to transform continually, completely wrapping up the Mount Tai. Boom! An ear-splitting noise seemed to rend the sky. Mount Tai disintegrated inside the array. But her opponent was not finished. She heard an incantation. Watch Dragon Pond Waterfall. In the sky, 1,000 chi-long waterfall flew out from the painting, coiling like a water dragon around the heavenly sacrifice pagoda. Yelu Wuxin's brows wrinkled. Evidently, she did not want her adversary ruining this place. This is not a place where you can behave atrociously. The girl's hands clapped. The yellow court book flipped to another page. A scream came from the sky, seemingly very far away, yet also seemingly beside her ear. It was extremely mournful, like someone bereaved. Another array opened around the pagoda. This array exhibited no changes. Yelu Wuxing shook her sleeve, and that 1,000 water dragon immediately rippled, surprisingly shrinking in size. In the end, it surprisingly fell into Yelu Wuxing's sleeve. The painting of the mountain and river's 2 powers were easily broken, astonishing yet also frustrating her opponent. With the waterfall and Mount Tai broken, the mirage seemed to immediately have 2 ugly empty spaces carved out of it. But her opponent sneered. This time the entire painting's scenery came down. However, at this moment, a prayer mat flew over. That prayer mat spun, forming a zone of primal chaos. Fellow Wonkong, this mountains and rivers as paintings is indeed beautiful, but I must ask that you stow it away, so as to avoid something regrettable over this painting. Li Taisui slowly appeared on top of the pagoda. That person snorted. Suddenly, the magnificent scenery above the sky vanished into thin air. Their view brightened, a cool breeze and scattered clouds as before. 1,000 zhang above Yelu Wuxin, there stood a man. His complexion was bright, his build imposing. He had sharp brows and twinkling eyes, a considerably sovereign august air. He had a 9-clawed golden dragon armor, and brocade as well as boots made from dragon scales. His left hand held a scroll. That scroll had scenery as black as ink, luxuriant forests. This was the source of the beautiful scenery from earlier. This man was named Woming Wonkong. 2. His true body was a purple-scaled magic cloud dragon. He quite benefited from the chi of the ley line, and his name of Wonkong naturally was not in the Buddhist sense of the emptiness of all things. Rather, everything in the world was beneath him. Of course, he indeed had the means to be this arrogant. Supervoid late-stage cultivation. Magic energy that was unfathomable. Across all of the White Tiger territory, he was a hegemon of the demonkin. Woming Wonkong looked at Li Taisui, then glanced back at the indifferent woman atop the heavenly sacrifice pagoda, faintly glowing yellow. He laughed. I heard that the White Tiger Liao Kingdom's great king, the Liao Emperor, had resurfaced. I specially came to meet him, but I never expected that the Liao Emperor who made the White Tiger territory's myriad demonkin bow their heads was surprisingly an unripe little girl. Li Taisui sneered. Fellow Wonkong, you honestly are arrogant. This king has convened the White Tiger's 4 great demonkin for support. What is this? Only you came? The girl did not look at him, and only read her book. Feeling he had been slighted, Woming Wonkong was furious. Defeat me first, then I shall advise them on your behalf, little girl. Otherwise, today, you will be food in my belly. Although the mountains and rivers as a painting magic weapon had been broken, this was not his true power at all. Woming Wonkong's shoulders shuddered. He uttered another incantation. Suddenly, the world dimmed, the wind howled, and purple clouds rolled in every direction. This was one of the formidable abilities of Woming Wonkong's true body. Purple cloud east rises. Just as Li Taisui was about to intervene, he heard Yelu Wuxin say, "We shall win them over." She flipped through the book in her hand. Another page fluttered by. From the book, a large yellow light ball flew out. This yellow light magnified, its brilliance blinding, illuminating everything. Ray after ray of yellow light formed a strange array in the air, blossoming splendidly. Li Taisui watched, awestruck. It instantly broke Woming Wonkong's purple cloud east rises. How about you let me read that book? With a forceful bellow, Woming Wonkong suddenly appeared behind her, 2 horns upon his forehead, his whole body covered in purple dragon scales. Then he swooped down, a purple light soaring, auspicious clouds rising. In the purple chi and clouds, Woming Wonkong's back vaguely manifested the shadow of a dragon. He howled at the sky, scratching directly at Yelu Wuxin. Yelu Wuxin could discern that Woming Wonkong appeared brash. His execution was very decisive, practically without any mercy. Normal cultivators proceeded sequentially by steps, first probing their opponent's limits before counterattacking. But whether Woming Wangkong's strength was remarkable or he was arrogant, from the start he used a trump card with no leeway. He dove down, his magic energy boundless, his might enough to jolt the entirety of Fengdu. Even Li Taisui was astonished. However, Yelu Wuxin had descended from Star World. She had seen great changes. Woming Wangkong's cheap trick was not enough to disturb the tranquility in the Liao Emperor's eyes. The girl's hands formed several hand seals. The arrays in the heavenly sacrifice pagoda's surroundings linked into a chain. Yet it was also like a gigantic yellow cloak. It resisted Woming Wangkong's powerful purple qi. Yelu Wuxin felt her hands sink, inwardly shouting how powerful. Indeed, the top-notch demonkin of the White Tiger territory had real skill. The girl could not help but be serious. She fiercely rose, pinning her opponent. When Woming Wangkong saw that his magic cloud dragon had been stopped, he suddenly fumed. He immediately circulated his magic energy and arrays. The purple dragon scales over his whole body glowed. He then opened his mouth, spun several times, and a purple cloud dragon took shape. The purple-scaled magic cloud dragon flailed inside the array of yellow light. With his true body manifested, his power had increased by several times. Yelu Wuxin immediately felt her heart shudder. She scented that the purple-scaled magic cloud dragon wrapped up inside her array fiercely thrash about, seemingly about to directly break the array. He broke free, and the opposing killing intent pervading the world rushed over. Knowing that this man's magic energy reached the heavens, Yelu Wuxin became increasingly vigilant. On one hand, she used force to suppress her foe, and on the other, she flipped open the book. Several divine weapons appeared in midair that slashed at Woming Wangkong. Several dozen swordlights slashed upon the purple-scaled magic cloud dragon, but Woming Wangkong's purple qi protected his body, and he had dragon scales. Although they hacked ruthlessly at him, they inflicted no damage. Just as he was about to sneer, Yelu Wuxin did not stop here. She raised her hand concealing the heavens array. An enormous hand descended from the sky and seized the purple-scaled purple cloud dragon. The size of that hand seemed to turn the purple-scaled magic cloud dragon into a worm. Suddenly seeing that hand break the heavens, the degree of its power, this was surprisingly far outside his expectations. Woming Wangkong's heart was alarmed. Where did this bitch come from? How can any array be so overwhelming? I have never seen this before. His body quivered, and he recalled that the Liao Emperor was famously rumored to have descended from Star World. Her power was ridiculous. The two of them simply were not even in the same world. After he recognized this, Woming Wangkong had no more arrogance in his heart. He immediately realized this innocuous-looking girl was not easy to handle. He immediately thought of retreated, but he was already too late. Woming Wangkong had already fallen into the array. Hand concealing the heavens array made him unable to escape. He struggled with all his might, but no matter how more stronger he was, it was still difficult to resist. The giant hand grabbed, squeezing the man into its palm. It seemed that it needed only to flex to be able to pinch him to death as easily as an ant. For the first time, Woming Wangkong felt despair. No more. I am willing to aid the great king. Really? Yelu Wuxin played with a lock of hair. This battle appeared intense, but the girl had always maintained her book-reading posture, making Woming Wangkong completely submit. I concede. I am willing to go convince those demonkin on behalf of the great king. Yelu Wuxin flipped through the book. That giant hand vanished. The cloud dragon descended, transformed into human form. Woming Wangkong heaved, barely escaping with his life. Go on. Yelu Wuxin gently said. One, right arrow curving left 2. I'm really perplexed by this. Translated literally, this guy's name is My Name Wangkong. Like the My Name Jeff meme. The nearby Li Taisui watched dumbstruck. Ever since the Liao Emperor retreated in defeat from the Crystal Dragon Palace's treasure banquet, he was skeptical of the Liao Emperor's strength, and he also felt doubts about her ability to overthrow Maiden Mountain. Losing the Liao Kingdom's #1 martial general and magic general. What power could the prehistoric Liao Emperor have? No one was sure. Now it appeared that this Liao Emperor was indeed still overwhelmingly powerful. showing the skill to nonchalantly suppress one of the White Tiger territory's demonkin hegemons, the purple-scaled magic cloud dragon. At least now, it appeared that the Liao Emperor was still somewhat capable. Li Taisui added more reverence into his posture. Yelu Wuxin slightly smiled. How was this not a warning to him? Great King, I wonder what plan you have in store, to have convened all of the top-notch demonkin in this fashion? The White Tiger territory's demonkin already fought their own battles. If she summoned them to topple Maiden Mountain together, Li Taisui felt this way of thinking was very childish. If not for this purpose, Li Taisui could think of no other reason. Ever since her defeat at the treasure banquet, Yelu Wuxin had lost her two great generals. After she returned to the White Tiger territory, she appeared a bit despondent, but Li Taisui was still wondering if the prehistoric Liao Emperor had been defeated by Maiden Mountain star generals. He did not foresee that several days later, she would comprehend the Yellow Court, as if she realized some profound mystery. Then, she came to Fengdu to reactivate the Heavenly Sacrifice Pagoda's array. When this pagoda was erected, records were seemingly not employed for it. It was merely a tower upon which to offer sacrifices. And now, the Liao Emperor's great fanfare about this made Li Taisui feel increasingly uneasy. The old man did not like this feeling of being kept in the dark. Immediately he took an indirect approach. How could Yelu Wuxin be unaware of his intentions? She said. Li Taisui, you wish to know of Star World's matters. The old man was taken aback. He cupped his fist and said, I would like to hear the details. He was once like Yelu Wuxin, inquiring matters about the star duels. However, before that time there was no such thing as the star duels. Yelu Wuxin did not know anything. As for matters about Star World, he had actually forgotten about that. Star World has millions of star names. We cannot speak clearly about these star names. However, we nevertheless once mentioned that there is a rumor in Star World. Yelu Wuxin said thoughtfully. Rumor? Star World has a rumor named Amnesty Draft. In Star World, there are millions of star names. These star names are born from primal chaos and originated from legend. The traces of this are imprinted into the blood of a star general at birth. It is rumored that all generals of Star World have received this amnesty draft. So long as one finds the conditions for amnesty draft, they can unify Star World. Yelu Wuxin slowly said. What? The unflappable Li Taisui could not help but be shaken. Unify Star World. Star World was inherently full of mystery and dread to Liangshan continent. To suddenly hear the words unify Star World. How could Li Taisui not be stirred? Can it be that the condition for this convert recruitment is related to the current Liangshan continent star duels? Li Taisui calmed his breathing. Yelu Wuxin faintly said. This king is not sure, but this king has suddenly deduced something. Back when the Great Song brought star generals to attack my Liao kingdom, this king had believed that they were prying into the Great Liao's star general restraint array, the Tai spherical heaven form array. Now that this king reflects, not long after this king fell into this world, the star duels began. Perhaps they did not attack for the array, but rather to cast this king into this world. Yelu Wuxin's eyes narrowed. She closed the book. On the topic of Star World, this conversation ended. Li Taisui listened, flabbergasted. If these rumors of Star World did not come from the great prehistoric Liao Emperor, he would never have believed them. The star duels were surprisingly involved in unifying Star World? Could it be that wish was real? In short, we cannot allow Maiden Mountain's women to do as they please. If you want to end the star duels, then you must truly destroy her. Yelu Wuxin's tone suddenly turned cold. Truly destroy her? Li Taisui's heart sank. Great King, what does this mean? Still do not understand? Why do the star duels have Chaogai standing guard? Why is there a rule restricting the 7 stars assembly? Yelu Wuxin smiled. Why else but that those star generals are somewhat weak. As long as we kill Chaogai, guardian of the star duels, the rules of these star duels will naturally break, understand? Li Taisui's mouth hung agape. For a moment, Yelu Wuxin's words shocked him. Kill 1,000 Buddha star Chaogai? No one in the 9th star duels dared to have this thought. Even if they had thought of it, Chao Gai already demonstrated in the past star duels how incredibly stupid this idea was. However, if he thought of her words carefully, Yelu Wuxin's words were not impossible. As the guardian of the star duels, if they killed her, would that not topple the star duels? This was the true meaning of an overthrow. Of course you are no match for her. She has descended on behalf of the Xiuxiu of the 9 firmaments. How could any of you possibly compare to her? Yelu Wuxin sneered. Acting as the guardian, Chao Gai possessed formidable power. In the vast Liangshan continent, she came and went as she pleased, settling matters in one go. Even the greatest of star generals were left in her dust. Though she was almost able to injure Chao Gai, it was a pity that in the end, she had been foiled at that last moment by the purple thunder monster. Yelu Wuxin nevertheless did not speak further. She seemed a bit tired. This king's array has been prepared expressly for Chao Gai. So as to avoid side issues, this king requires the few of you cultivators to stand watch. Yelu Wuxin's eyes held some disapproval. If it was not for her great generals sealed inside Chao Gai's pagoda, she basically would not have counted on the White Tiger Territory's cultivators at all. At that time Li Taisui, would you sacrifice your life for the sake of ending it? Yelu Wuxin suddenly bantered to this old man. As long as this old man can help Zijian end the star duels, this old man's bones are not worth a mention. Li Taisui cupped his fist and said, "This old man is indebted for great king's favor." Yelu Wuxin smiled, easily able to see that this old man's hypocrisy, though his words were grand. To speak of helping his own star general and disregarding his own life, these words could fool only those naive children. How could this old man not wish to ascend into Star World? What Star Master would not wish to ascend into Star World? This king is weary. Go and make the arrangements. Yelu Wuhui waved her hand. Li Taisui deferentially withdrew. Seeing the old man retreat, Yelu Wuxin sneered. To end these star duels is so simple. Just kill every single star general. Humph, Maiden Mountain. Allowing this king to arrive into this world is your greatest mistake. Li Taisui descended the stairs while pondering the information he obtained from Yelu Wuxin. Unify Star World? It is as this old man thought. This Star World really is interesting. Li Taisui slowly brought out his paper fan as he muttered to himself. Liangshan Continent's Earth is worth nothing in the eyes of Star World, as expected. This old man actually wants to see it. Just as he thought this, Li Taisui abruptly wrinkled his brow. His face retracted its smile, gazed at the horizon and became grave. A woman in bloodied clothes approached, descending in front of him. Zijian, what happened to you? Li Taisui promptly asked young Zijian when he saw her. Is that daredevil third brother so powerful that even you would cut such a sorry figure, Zijian? Li Taisui was just about to reprimand her for nurturing a tiger when Yang Zijian spoke. Taisui, that purple thunder monster has come. What, the purple thunder monster? Li Taisui's expression turned grim. Every time he heard of the purple thunder monster, it always seemed that something bad happened. So after hearing of the Liao Emperor's plan to end the star duels, then hearing the purple thunder monster's name, he immediately became unsightly, particularly when he saw Yang Zijian's heavy injuries. His heart's fury already renounced collaboration with the purple thunder monster as beyond the clouds. How did this happen? Yang Zijian summarized the events that transpired. The contents more or less were that Suxing teamed up with the all-out Xiuxiu. In the end, Yang Zijian suffered disastrous defeat. Zijian, you must ask yourself, did you truly lose? Li Taisui said in a low voice, his tone overbearing. In his old man's heart, blue-faced beast Yang Zijian's power could be said to be first among the Star Duel's martial generals. Li Taisui was unable to accept that just teamwork between the purple thunder monster and Xiuxiu was enough to injure her. If there was Lin Chong or Wu Song, then perhaps. But those opponents did not appear at all. This made Li Taisui have a feeling of humiliation. Yang Zijian was neither servile nor overbearing. Zijian was careless. AI. This cannot be blamed on you. That purple thunder monster's strength is unfathomable, his magic weapons innumerable. If he even had the aid of the all-out daredevil third brother. This old man is already very grateful you were able to return. As if sensing his previous expression was somewhat too stern, Li Taisui recovered his normal warmth and benevolence. Zijin, you had better return to the star nest to recover in the meantime. And then can it be the purple thunder monster and Xiuxiu have signed a contract? Li Taisui was a bit apprehensive. This man contracting daredevil third brother would turn his plan to specially cultivate Xiuxiu into a futile effort. And the crimson star that appeared not so long ago made Li Taisui a bit uneasy. Li Taisui then relayed the information of Star World's Amnesty draft, and the information about ending the star duels that he learned from the Liao Emperor. Blue-faced Beast also showed an astonished expression, but she very quickly and silently assented to Li Taisui's decisions. Not long after, Han Bing and Xian Lao returned in succession. After realizing Yang Zijin had been defeated, Han Bing's expression was cold to the extreme, but she did not show this to Li Taisui. She could only say in a cold voice, "That monster is truly damnable, to surprisingly look down upon the White Tiger territory." However, Han Bing has killed one of his wives, his strength has been debilitated. Taisui, shall we seize this chance to kill him? Han Bing asked. The Liao Emperor currently has a plan. For the time being, we are not to disturb the grass. That purple thunder monster has dared to appear in the White Tiger territory. This old man fears that he has assistance. Going now achieves nothing. Li Taisui was displeased. He originally wanted to negotiate with the purple thunder monster about ending the star duels. Now it appeared that his hopes were dashed. But never mind, Li Taisui did not truly believe that purple thunder monster would assist them. That man is truly fortunate. Fortunate? If this old man is correct, your terrified to the bone was not necessarily able to kill the purple thunder monster's wife. If he saved her, perhaps they will come to Kaifeng. Li Taisui showed a warm grin. At that time we shall properly welcome him. Everything is as you command, Taisui. Su Xing sneezed, feeling as if someone was thinking about him. Ingmei? Xiu? He wondered how they were faring at the extreme ice abyss. He did not think anything would happen to them. After what happened to Xiu, Su Xing could not help but start to worry about the other wives that had mobilized. When he rushed urgently the clinging bird hill, Su Xing suddenly felt the intertwined branch sword resonate. Could it be that Zhao Hanyan was in the vicinity? My lord! Hua Wanyua suddenly spotted a beauty in front of them, and shouted at Su Xing. Su Xing looked, and his heart immediately bubbled with warmth. One. Are you sure about that? Hanyan, why are you here? Su Xing did not think he would run into Zhao Hanyan here at all. It seems the White Tiger territory has a divine bird, so Hanyan came to take a look. Zhao Hanyan seemed to smile. It's great that you're here. I just happen to need your help facing the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. The star-riding boat descended, and Su Xing sighed. You just need its feathers, you ought to be able to do that. Dong Junqing stroked her lips, her wickedly glancing at Su Xing's body. A lewd expression that very much cherished a certain memory. Zhao Hanyan's brows twisted. She noticed that Su Xing's expression was flustered. She had never seen him like this before, and she could not help but ask sternly. Su Xing, what happened? Xiu was struck by Han Bing's power. She needs the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's soul to be cured. Su Xing summarized the events. Zhao Hanyan was shocked, flashing into the star-riding boat. As expected, she saw Xiu laying on the bed. The girl's body was extremely cold, a mist surrounding her. She could not be approached at all. This kind of ice-cold feeling was beyond even the 1,000-year black ice. Then let us go right now. Little sister's injuries cannot be delayed. Zhao Hanyan asked Dong Junqing. Junqing, how are your preparations? No problems. This general has long wanted to test the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. Dong Junqing had already mostly recovered from the star duel with Yi Futu. The steadfast star twirled the dragon phoenix yin-yang spears and nodded. Su Xing then arranged their battle formation, having Hua Wanyua keep a distance and watch for chances. Su Xing, Zhao Hanyan, and Dong Junqing would take a frontal assault. Of course, Gong Sun Huang would also watch for an opportunity to use her earth rank. Because this concerned Xiu's life and death, they were extremely urgent. There was no tolerance for mishaps, nor was there any time to waste. Stepping onto Clinging Bird Hill, the temperature immediately skyrocketed, instantly making them drip with sweat. These temperatures were far from normal. Even while using star energy, they were unable to dispel it. These flames came from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, and the phoenix tree's natural fire. It pervaded the internal organs, capable of making any cultivator feel suffering. This place is unexpectedly so hot. Dong Junqing was very uncomfortable. She seemed to be on fire from head to toe, but this was not lust. Zhao Hanyan felt smothered, loath to even open her mouth. Before they could even see the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, to feel such broiling heat, this made Zhao Hanyan have a feeling of foreboding. Hanyan Junqing, take these. Xiuxiu handed already prepared ice souls to the two girls. The moment Zhao Hanyan received this ice soul, she immediately felt the chills coming from her hand, greatly abating the temperature. Lianxin forged these. Take these 2 ice heart pills as well. Xiuxiu said. You always have so many goodies, but what about you? Dong Junqing said. I have the meditative mind lotus flower for protection. This little trial means nothing to me. Xiuxiu had undergone every kind of serious trial. This temperature naturally could also be endured. I saw that your energy wasn't too good before. Was there a battle? You must have suffered, Junqing. You'd better be careful this time, don't force yourself. Xiuxiu gently warned. To be frank, Dong Junqing's heart had never felt this kind of sweetness. Indeed, it was somewhat gratifying. Your words are simply insulting this general. However, seeing as you are concerned with this general, never mind. Fine. In short, do not be careless, Junqing. Zhao Hanyan also put away her heedless attitude. After all, they were facing the legendary clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. Her heart was somewhat anxious, her palms full of sweat. Xiuxiu's divine intent moved. A yellow book appeared. An absolutely beautiful woman clad in a yellow gown suddenly appeared out of thin air. This woman's long sleeves wafted yellow qi, dispersing like smoke, forming a barrier. She was none other than the Empress to Earth book. Seeing that Xiuxiu was scheming so meticulously out of fear that something would happen to them, Zhao Hanyan knowingly smiled. Little Huang, I'll leave this to you, Xiuxiu said. The Gongsun Huang sitting on his shoulder nodded. She held the pine-brand ancient sword and pointed it at the distant tree. Several rays of star magic were then released. The enormous phoenix tree that covered the sky rumbled. The treetop shook, and those fire-red leaves trembled, immediately burning with tumultuous flames. These flames viciously blew in every direction, and a rolling heat wave burst out. Empress Tu raised her sleeve, raising a barrier that dispelled the heat wave. Everywhere else was washed apart. That scorching heat smothered a range of 10 li immediately afterwards. A clear phoenix cry reached the sky. The phoenix tree seemed to come to life. A giant divine bird burst out from the canopy, suddenly revealing itself to everyone. And what a beautiful divine bird it was. Its figure was graceful, perfectly outlined, with feathers like jade, sparkling and translucent. Its wings were like flames, bright and burning. Seemingly right behind it was majesty that outshone everything in the world. A pair of dazzling, gem-like eyes glinted. Its body that was as streamlined as a feather hovered like a cloud. What was most breathtaking was the tail plumage of the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. It had the markings of fire, thin as a cicada's wing. What a beautiful bird. Zhao Hanyan had a sort of reluctance to slay it. Even the most skilled painter in the world could not do this bird's beauty the slightest bit of justice. Although they were awestruck by the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, the bird itself had no such thoughts. She saw a group of cultivators, just like every other suicidally ignorant cultivator that attempted to disturb her. These cultivators were very powerful, but the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian still did not hesitate to unleash its attack. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's pupils glinted, and it spat out a ray of scarlet light. This light was like a sharp blade, easily cutting open the earth. With a bang, Empress Tu's Earth Qi defenses were unexpectedly breached. Even the Earth Book was unable to defend against this. Xiuxiu did not want to experience the terror of this light. From past descriptions, The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's scarlet light could easily kill anyone in a mere instant. Watch our flying swords. Xiuxiu and Zhao Hanyan immediately acted. The 12 heaven-tearing and 100 outer void-flying immortals' swords appeared. In terms of numbers, Zhao Hanyan had inherited Dong Jiuanqing's double sword's innate skill. She could control twice as many flying swords with this, and the innate skill also increased the damage her flying swords inflicted. Just the brilliant slashes of those 100 flying swords were things that an ordinary person could not withstand. Even Xiuxiu showed a bit of astonishment. In comparison, his ancient flying swords heaven-tearing seemed very meek. Although flying swords were powerful, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian disdained them as beneath her. She raised her wings, and a bright flame erupted. It wrapped around all of the incoming flying swords, making the flying swords that the two of them were so proud of amount to nothing. As expected, you still need this general to enter close quarters. Dong Jiuanqing leapt forwards, using the tree trunk as a platform. She sprung high, the yin-yang double spears sweeping together at the same time, releasing a yin-yang cross-slash in midair. Crescent spearlights rained down, but they were surprisingly unable to penetrate the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's flame defenses. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian cried. This time was even more overbearing. Several thousand rays of light as bright as scarlet flames flew out from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's wings, just like blooming fireworks, turning into a downpour of flaming swords. They easily tore asunder Dong Jiuanqing's technique, as well as Gong Sunhuang's star magic. Dong Jiuanqing paused in midair, somersaulted, and relied on her superb reflexes to evade the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's torrential attack. At this moment, Xiuxiu also closed the distance, but the flames over the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's whole body made people unable to draw near. Broiling flames covered its whole body as well as its internal organs. These flames are very formidable. There is no way to cross them at all. Dong Jiuanqing's double spears slashed about. She finally realized the terrifying aspect of this divine bird. Just approaching those high temperatures could make a martial general's battle capabilities plummet, and the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's omnipresent powers made them completely unable to find a chance to attack. Hey! Xiuxiu shouted, suddenly forming a hand seal and striking with purple mansion immortal thunder. Divine thunder filled the skies and clashed with the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's divine fire, showering the area with fierce sparks, shaking the earth. But his hard work paid off. Xiuxiu had finally opened a path. Dong Jiuanqing's senses were keen, advancing forwards through the gap. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian again released divine fire. At this moment, a burst of cold from behind her eased the burden upon Dong Jiuanqing. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Xiuxiu using instant frost flame to disperse the flames. The corner of Dong Jiuanqing's lips curled, and she shouted mightily. Finally breaking through the obstruction of flames, she did not stop at all. She directly thrust one spear into the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body. But Dong Jiuanqing was far from being able to injure this sort of divine bird. Her thrust had barely pierced into its body when billowing flames once again erupted. That powerful force was like the opening of floodgates, sending Dong Jiuanqing flying backwards. While she was in midair, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian opened its mouth and spat a fireball to vaporize Dong Jiuanqing. However, Hua Wanyue shot an arrow to interrupt her attack. Then Dong Jiuanqing quickly adjusted herself. However, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's speed was extremely swift. She flapped her wings, soaring to an even higher altitude. With speed, she broke free of Dong Jiuanqing's entanglement. Clearly, she had recognized the power of this girl. One bout later, Xiuxiu and the girls had not taken the advantage. She is not easy to fight. Zhao Hanyan was drenched in sweat. Her 100 flying swords were temporarily on standby. Continually controlling her flying swords to attack was extremely taxing on her energy. Xiuxiu carefully stared at the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's beautiful eyes, trying to find her weak point. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was high above, as if she was embedded among the crimson stars in the sky, glowing brightly. She slightly flapped her wings, as if she was mulling the situation over. Her long and beautiful tail feathers fluttered about in the wind like tassels. Shall we retrieve the tail feathers first? Zhao Hanyan asked. No need to do it like this. If we can't take her soul, then the feathers are useless to me too. Xiuxiu did not hesitate to decline. He apparently did not want to do this. Zhao Hanyan was without a choice. This man was fine with anything, but sometimes, treating his women too good was not good at all. He had surprisingly completely disregarded his fire element flying sword material. Then good, this princess will occupy her for now. As long as you can draw near, you can handle her. The Ling Yan princess said. Her divine intent moved, and the 100 flying swords manifested their heavenly immortal forms. This time, their sword chi was agile, forming a beautiful sword array. Zhao Hanyan silently chanted and raised her arms. The yin-yang bracelet flew out, hurtling towards the clinging Vermilion Jian. Xiuxiu immediately used an escape technique. This time he directly brought out the 5-star dragon sparrow Duel saber. He really is impatient. Dong Junqing took a deep breath and summoned the void dragon false phoenix. Gong Sun Huang thoughtfully released her yet to fully recover new heavenly phoenix, and Hua Wanyue did not hesitate either. The heavenly hero Red Luan appeared directly. The 4 great vermilion bird-like firebirds clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, heavenly hero Red Luan, void dragon false phoenix, and the new heavenly phoenix immediately started an awe-inspiring melee. Liked it. This scene was unprecedented in Liangshan continent. At once faced with 3 star beasts in addition to every kind of sword array and magic weapon, even stronger cultivators could not possibly escape unscathed. Even the divine bird clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was hard-pressed. This was not their true trump card, however. The real trump card was naturally Xiuxiu and Dong Junqing's combined attack. Although Xiuxiu and Dong Junqing were not contracted to each other, the two of them were still obviously lovers. Their minds were synchronized, understanding one another very tacitly. Their pupils contracted in an instant, and they showed serious expressions at the same time. Using the cover of the Star Beasts and Zhao Hanyan, the two of them immediately seized their chance to attack. Dong Junqing's beautiful body suddenly leapt several hundred meters into the air. She was even faster than the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's crimson lights. The dragon phoenix yin-yang spears in the woman's hands seemed to jeer as the woman slashed with power to topple mountains and overflow seas. A ghastly light flashed in the sky. Yin-yang cross-slash. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's defenses could be considered gorgeous and relaxed. The flame-like feathers over its whole body were its strongest defensive magic weapon. Flapping its wings without any excess movement, she cut down the steadfast star's yellow technique, as if she did not place Dong Junqing in her eyes at all. The instant that its resistance reached its peak, a blinding light finally exploded from the space between them. A hole was suddenly tore open in the pervasive dust above. Xiuxiu immediately followed upwards, slashing with the dragon sparrow Duel saber again and again. The star energy on the blade's edge blossomed, not holding back in the slightest. Now Xiuxiu's slashes were each tyrannical enough to easily kill a supercluster cultivator instantly. Under the teamwork of Xiuxiu and Dong Junqing, the magnificent clinging heaven Vermilion Jian let out a graceful cry, finally feeling pain. Its seemingly gentle and dreamy body attacked at exceptionally high speed. The area within a range of several hundred meters immediately burned with a bright flame. The power of these clinging fire was formidable. An average cultivator could not face these flames, let alone approach without getting burned clean away. Then the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's attack nevertheless landed on nothing. Long before she attacked, Zhao Hanyan's 100 flying swords had already formed the strongest shield to help defend her 2 most beloveds. Of course, the consequences were not so easy to bear. The flying swords linked to her life were immediately scorched and smoldering. The true spirits of the flying swords were completely destroyed. It was obvious how frightening the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's clinging fire was. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian flapped its wings. Suddenly, it swept up an intense gust that easily created a super hurricane of clinging fire. Clinging fire and a whirlwind combined. Even with greater numbers, this would be hard to resist. As expected, Hua Wanyue's heavenly hero Red Luan very quickly was unable to continue, and was dispatched by the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. Then Dong Juanqing's Void Dragon False Phoenix was also defeated. The situation was approaching a crisis. Xiuxiu used an escape technique. He was like a rapidly flowing stream in the middle of the storm, charging about as he wished amidst the incoming clinging fire. He left behind him a long trail of golden petals. The meditative mind lotus flower bloomed at full power, appearing especially conspicuous on this flaming battlefield. By the time the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's third attack missed, Xiuxiu then fiercely pulled his body up, drawing a tight curve. Then he brought enormous magic energy to collide with the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's massive body once again. Hey! The sky exploded. A flame that seemed alive pounced and broke Xiuxiu's form, swallowing him. The flames perched on the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body fired all around Xiuxiu like arrows. Yin-yang spear light twisted in Xiuxiu's surroundings, immediately repelling the attack. A figure came to Xiuxiu's side. To still be able to keenly observe Xiuxiu's situation during battle, the Five Tigers general was worthy of her name. "Mister, do not be careless," Dong Juanqing said. Xiuxiu slightly smiled. His figure flashed away. He suddenly carried Dong Juanqing in his arms. In an instant of life and death, Xiuxiu's body moved at speed exceeding his conscious limits. In that instant he carried Dong Juanqing away. He felt an extremely sharp blade sweep down. At the same time the fine but matchlessly brilliant red light sliced off half his hair. It swept across the entire battlefield, parting the mountain range. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian once again used its ability. Its feathers directly became unstoppable blades. Then a sharp cry in the air flooded their ears. Flaming blades flit by at speeds that were practically impossible to react to, appearing very brilliant. It appeared in these concentrated sword lights. There was no chance to escape unscathed. It could be said that the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's feather blades were formidable. They sliced apart a range of several dozen kilometers. Beyond that range, some powerful demon beasts that were not aware of what was happening were decapitated on the spot or sliced in half. Their stumps were even cauterized very thoroughly. Their heads that kept roaring expression fell to the ground, stirring up a bloodied cloud of dust. Jumbled together with corpses frozen in odd and rigid positions, anyone would feel aghast at the sight. This kind of ability made even Dong Juanqing break out into a cold sweat. She perhaps could have resisted, but for how long? Xiuxiu directly used his light smoke dance steps to evade, and then the meditative mind lotus flower for protection, wandering about the 1,000 feather blades, waiting for the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's attack to abate. At this time, Zhao Hanyan was unable to continue controlling her flying swords anymore. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was honestly too powerful. Those prehistoric clinging fires left her with no choice but to withdraw her flying swords. She threw out every kind of magic weapon, but that was a futile effort. Although she ached to go help them, she considered that she would add to Xiuxiu's burden, and could only dismiss the idea. And then the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's clinging fire was completely caught by the Earth Book. It very nearly tore the Earth Book to shreds. "Lingyan princess, you had best be careful," Huanyue said. The hero star continuously fired her bow, each and every one an attempt to give Xiuxiu a chance. This made Zhao Hanyan very envious. At this very moment, Gongsun Huang used a wind riding through territory star magic, raising Xiuxiu and Dong Juanqing's body techniques to even greater heights, up above the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's head. They finally escaped the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's clinging fire blades. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian raised its heads to the sparkling sky, gazing at a scorching red dot above, where her prey was. Then she flapped her wings, extremely angered. She finally sensed that her opponents were far unlike any of the intruders she had faced previously. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian sensed danger, and it once again used full power. Suddenly, it unleashed a crimson ray of clinging fire directly through the clouds that was like a gigantic sword capable of cleaving even the heavens. Countless raging flames tore the air apart. The giant crimson sword spiraling upwards very quickly formed a vortex that blotted out the sun. Heaven and earth unbelievably warped and shuddered under the boiling airflow, as if something was currently charging up. Then, when the concentrated flames finally reached the critical point, A pillar of fire that clambered up to the highest point finally roared like an erupting volcano. A stifling hot wind instantly rolled over Clinging Hill. And at the crest of this red wave, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian was braving the winds. Its wildly blazing figure shot into the clouds at that moment, but the climbing heaven Vermilion Jian's dazzling body nevertheless made the surroundings appear dim. Her majestic wings were like two white-hot axes, slicing apart the billowing air, severing the ashen skies, cutting open the fearful lines of sight of insignificant demon beasts. This was the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's most famous ability. Scarlet flame splitting. Flames that seemed able to split the heavens rolled over. This flaming blade descended. Just when Xiuxiu was unable to evade, the new heavenly phoenix forged onward to intercept this attack. This powerful star beast activated its own full-power ability to contest the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, but it was surprisingly blown away a moment later by the scarlet flames. Unable to continue battle, the failure of its first wave of attacks made the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian considerably frustrated. It would have been great if this bird was a star beast. Dong Junqing clucked her tongue. Then Xiuxiu's voice pulled her back to their high-speed battle at altitude. Look out, don't be careless. Before the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's second wave of scarlet flame splitting, Xiuxiu and Dong Junqing promptly attacked. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian once again opened an inescapable net. Xiuxiu flew across the blue heavens with an unimaginable arc, leaving behind only a dazzling red streak against the multicolored skies. And at the end of his trail, more than 1,000 fire serpents flocked over, like fireworks exploding in the sky. Each one was full of a deadly presence. But although their aggression was strong, the swiftly moving tongues of flame were completely unable to catch up to that fuzzy target. In an instant, they were already left far behind him, their long bodies entangled due to the excessively blind chase, twisting into an ugly giant fireball. Speedy reactions and clever evasion allowed Xiuxiu to avoid the first wave. But the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's assault was far from just this. At the same time, large swathes of flame once again leapt off from its shining body. The flames were thick to the point that opaque heat waves appeared one after another. The tongues of flame crowded together bore down upon him menacingly. It's no good, we'll be struck sooner or later if this goes on. Xiuxiu's pupils suddenly contracted. It seems that this general will need to use her earth rank. Dong Junqing said. All along, she did not wish to use her earth rank. The general of double spears was absolute that this perhaps was the sole area that made her feel more dazzling than Lin Mei. It was a pity she was using it for the sake of this man, but she had no choice but to make an exception. Man Yuo Junqing a favor. Dong Junqing very lewdly licked her chapped lips, the meaning in her eyes apparently very clear. For this favor, repay it with your body. Xiuxiu smiled, aware of her intentions, and nodded. Once again he used the meditative mind lotus flower, beginning to sparkle with a brilliant light. And how beautiful and dazzling it was. The lotus flower's petals blossomed amidst the flames, protecting Dong Junqing. Xiuxiu was at her side, cutting down every attack, buying Dong Junqing time to use her earth rank. Dong Junqing shouted furiously. Holding her double spears, she drew a giant half-circle in the sky, raising those hot and cold dragon phoenix yin-yang spears that were renowned across Liangshan continent. Her figure broke through with a speed that could not be followed by the naked eye. She was like a shooting star streaking across the darkness, falling from the heavens straight for the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's forehead. The double spears let out two lights more glaring than the sun. The next instant, an intense and dense ripple burst out from between where the two collided. A powerful force swallowed them both at the point of contact, letting out a harsh grating sound like when metals ground against one another. The scorching hot storm immediately rolled over the entire battlefield, and even the unending mountain chain seemed to shudder slightly. Past the burning storm of flames, Dong Junqing's double spears swung down. Boom! The light of these double spears seemed able to cut the ground in half. The yin-yang double spears dragon and phoenix flew out. In midair, one became two, and two became three. Along with Dong Junqing's double spear's endless attacks, more and more dragons and phoenixes flew out from her spear. This kind of feeling was like there were countless dragon phoenix yin-yang spears attacking the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. There were practically no gaps, making Xiuxiu quite speechless. This was the earth rank of one of the 108-star Maiden 5 Tiger Generals, Dragonfly's Phoenix Dances. This is my chance. Hua Wanyue drew her bow and blurted out. The 10,000 god-killing arrow shot directly at the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. The arrow stuck into the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's cry was more resounding than a clap of thunder, far beyond any sound in the world. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian that was suddenly injured once again flapped its wings, and a burst of flame suddenly flew out. There was a kind of odd illusion at this instant. Because of the high temperatures, the world seemed to stop. The flow of time seemed to stagnate, the swelling winds were destroyed, and even Xiuxiu's matchlessly resolute willpower was frozen in that instant. The surroundings gradually faded away, covered by a surging blaze. Then, in this concentrated deathly stillness, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian gathered the ambient light in the atmosphere using its crown. It was like a shimmering star in the pitch-black darkness. A sharp light shot out from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body. This light beam was a blade that split the sky and earth. It first cleaved the entire battlefield in two. Then it sharply cut down half the mountain face. Finally, it split apart the clouds in the sky without stopping. Its speed was too fast to react to. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's furious roar and death declaration passed over Dong Junqing's body in an instant. Dong Junqing was enormously surprised her earth rank was unexpectedly unable to slay this divine bird. She fiercely wielded her double spears, but immediately afterwards, followed by an oppressive ripping sound. The dragon phoenix yin-yang spears in her hands were nevertheless torn away from her body by an unblockable, powerful strike. Then, she was blown into the air by a strong wind. A series of sparks shot out from the entire gouged area. Xiuxiu's expression immediately turned pale, and he promptly threw himself over. The next instant, Xiuxiu caught the flying Dong Junqing, who had been knocked unconscious. He evaded the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's strong and silent offensive, but the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian began to unleash its spiritual pressure. It mercilessly pushed Xiuxiu towards the ground. In the blink of an eye, it had slammed Xiuxiu and Dong Junqing ruthlessly against the ground, splashing a wave of flame reaching the sky. Junqing, are you all right? Xiuxiu's concerned voice entered her ears, seemingly coming from far away. This general was careless. Dong Junqing shakily rose from the ashes, shaking her muddled head. She did not expect her earth rank to fail at their chance to attain victory. You did well. She won't last much longer, Xiuxiu said. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian before their eyes let out a low roar. Dong Junqing's earth rank technique did not fail at all. The powerful dragon flying phoenix dancing apparently made the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian sustain heavy injury, and Hua Wanyue's last arrow was the cherry on top. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian apparently put all of her focus into launching a powerful attack. She was very aware that if she did not quickly kill her enemy, her chances were slipping away every second. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian opened its mouth and sprayed a high-density flame that condensed into a red lightning suddenly descending from the sky. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's clinging fire breath was more terrifying than any of this world's fire element abilities. Yet the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's time was short, and a stagnation appeared in the clinging fire. Xiuxiu shielded Dong Junqing with his own body, the meditative mind lotus flower erupting with radiant light. 1,000 flower petals bloomed around them, stopping the clinging fire attack like a sturdy shield, keeping them safe under the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's attack. The flow of flames that dared to encroach were completely extinguished. It's not over yet. Xiuxiu showed a warm smile to Dong Junqing, apparently very grateful she would accompany him, even facing this world's most frightening divine bird. The next instant, a booming breath once again came from overhead. Xiuxiu did not hesitate to raise the dragon sparrow Dulong saber. Then a blood shadow on his body flashed, the chaotic tail escape. Hey, Xiuxiu slashed downwards. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian spat out clinging fire. A flaming light burst out from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body, cutting apart the surrounding air like a sharp knife. It burned directly towards the sky, fearlessly attacking Xiuxiu. If it could be said that the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's attack was a blinding sun, then Xiuxiu's counterattack was the moonlight that borrowed the sun. Although trifling, it was nevertheless strong. Xiuxiu finally caught that frightening blade of clinging fire. The place where the flames and light touched immediately became a true void. Even specks of dust were destroyed by the terrifying might, disintegrating to particles invisible to the naked eye, then burned away due to the high heat. Light more blinding than the sun finally dispersed from the sky. The raging flames were like serpents slithering everywhere over the ground, flocking over after they found a weak point. The entire earth immediately turned into a volcano, spitting out lava everywhere. Any cultivator that saw this scene would become filled with unmatched despair at this time, because the entire area was filled with clinging fire, but Xiuxiu paid it no attention, facing again and again the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's seemingly endless light. The next instant, a thin but incomparably dazzling red light beam fired. This red light drew a glaring arc in the air, piercing through the burning sea of flames and magnificent blade light, accurately aimed at her prey. The second beam of light pierced the hot winds, once again firing towards her target. Then the third. And the fourth. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian used all of its power, doing its utmost to launch its final and most beautiful strike, but Xiuxiu continually resisted. Even if his body was burned, pockmarked with countless blisters, Xiuxiu did not waver one bit. In his mind, the only thought was to attack and attack. An endlessly oppressive attack. Master, look out! This time she too was unable to stop Xiuxiu. The dragon sparrow Du-Long saber hacked into the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body. Junqing used that. Zhao Hanyan shouted from far away. Dong Junqing understood tacitly and leapt high. The dragon phoenix yin-yang double spears danced again, and she smiled savagely. Man, this is not what I meant by repaying that favor with your body. Watch this. Dong Junqing wielded the spears. The hot and cold lights intertwined, twisting and inverting one another, finally slamming into the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian. Heaven Earth Dark Yellow Skill. Top 1 Inverted Phoenix Slash. The already injured clinging heaven Vermilion Jian attempted another counterattack, but at this time, Gong Sunhuan's half-destroyed landscape shattered her prepared counterattack. Afterwards, another barrage of Hua Wanyue's arrows found their mark. Following that, Xiuxiu's saber cut into her body, finally cleaving apart her defenses. With a cry, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian finally could not continue. Her wings stiffened, and she fell to the ground, unable to move. After a lengthy battle, this divine bird was finally settled. Seeing those beautiful, gem-like eyes, Xiuxiu suddenly felt some pity. Big brother, can you take her soul without killing her? And Suwen asked. Suwen, is there a reason? Because legend says even if the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's soul is taken, as long as its body is still preserved before its spiritual power fades, it will be capable of resurrection. And Suwen said. Xiuxiu nodded. Although the materials on the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's body were very valuable, Xiuxiu did not want them at all. He only needed the soul capable of saving Xiu. Rest well. Forgive me. Xiuxiu tenderly stroked the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's head. This divine bird apparently responded to something and quietly cried, slowly closing its eyes. After taking its soul, Xiuxiu immediately placed her into Xiu's body. As expected, the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's fire immediately dispelled the cold. Xiu slowly warmed up, finally allowing Xiuxiu a breath of relief. However, before this was over, Xiuxiu obtained 12 feathers from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian as material for his flying sword. Xiuxiu, you are sure you need only these 12 feathers? Zhao Hanyan asked regretfully. The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's liver is reportedly a powerful supplement, very helpful for cultivation. Forget about it. Xiuxiu shook his head. With his current cultivation, this type of medicine was simply insufficient. Zhao Hanyan smiled. She wandered around the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's surroundings, taking a few intact feathers as mementos. While Xiu was recovering, Xiuxiu began to take the chance to forge his fire element flying swords. The The clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's feathers were exceptional materials for fire element flying swords. Xiuxiu did not even need Tang Lianxin to refine them, so he was able to forge them himself. Each of the swords of the heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5 elements swords were formed differently. The fire element flying sword's main body was the clinging heaven Vermilion bird Jian's feather. He used the feather as the main structure to forge a unique and unmatched feather blade. Xiuxiu used his fire to begin continuously shaping the feather's appearance. Gradually, the feather's frail appearance began to show the edge of a sword. Then Xiuxiu imbued it with other materials. He slowly started to grind them. This was a long process. The already powerless Dong Junqing watched from the side, as she was supported by Zhao Hanyan. This sword truly is beautiful. Dong Junqing's eyes glinted. Zhao Hanyan agreed. The 12 fire element flying swords began to show signs of developing. Due to Xiuxiu's magic energy being far more profound than before, this refinement speed was very fast. Very quickly, 12 beautiful red flying swords were already formed. Swords like feathers, as transparent as jade. Xiuxiu, what do you want to name these swords? Zhao Hanyan curiously asked. In truth, for immemorial flying swords like these, naming the flying sword was the most favorite thing for a cultivator. Xiuxiu pondered. He carved 2 words. Jian feather. 1. She's using it as a pronoun to address Xiuxiu, not in a casual way we English speakers do. Right arrow curving left 2. The Jian. Xiuxiu continued to forge and grind the fire element flying sword Jian feather. Because Dong Junqing used her heaven-earth dark yellow skill, Zhao Hanyan was completely drained of all energy and had no choice but to rest. Although Xiu rallied after ingesting the soul, she was still apparently unconscious. Hua Wanyue and Gong Sunhuang each sat cross-legged on guard. Rat Star by Yutong turned her large, adorable eyes to watch what her papa, elder sister, and mama were doing. The little lowly was not idle and brewed wine nearby, but because the White Tiger territory's terrain was unfavorable, Bai Yutong's brewing was not too successful. Squeak squeak. Bai Yutong's star beast, the essence spirit rat, lay atop the little lowly's shoulder. Suddenly, it smelled something and looked at a corner. The essence spirit rat squeaked a few times, then quickly climbed down her shoulder and entered the forest. Bye-bye. Bai Yutong shyly called out, but the essence spirit rat had penetrated into the forest. Bai Yutong stood up and jogged in pursuit, her mouth softly calling. Bye-bye, don't run. Gong Sunhuang cocked her head, seeing Bai Yutong leave. She then glanced at His Highness Xiuxiu. Because all of his attention was placed on forging the flying sword, Xiuxiu did not notice. Bye-bye, bye-bye. Bai Yutong chased for 100 meters, bursting out of a fire leaf bush. The essence spirit rat turned its head back and squeaked, hopping on top of a fire-red fruit. Don't run off, Pop will get mad. Bai Yutong crawled over, grumbling. The essence spirit rat squeaked back. When the little lowly looked to see that fruit, her innocent eyes were pleasantly surprised. This looks like it can ferment into an earth-rank wine. Bai Yutong inspected this fruit. Up until this stage, Bai Yutong was already able to brew earth-rank wine, but the materials she needed were very demanding. Papa was very busy, and Bai Yutong did not wish to bother him, so this earth-rank wine was put on the back burner. Her star beast essence spirit rat was able to smell the scent of any material for wine, so that was why the rat ran out. Oh! Bai Yutong's little face blushed from happiness as she carefully harvested the fruit. But at this moment, a blood shadow shot out. This blood shadow was extremely indistinct, hidden among the underbrush. After Bai Yutong picked the fruit, it finally showed itself. But just as it was about to attack Bai Yutong, a saber light swung over and slashed this blood shadow apart. This blood intoxicating aroma is used as a cure-all for healing injuries. Never thought you would find it. Rat Star Daylight Rat by Shengha. To surprisingly see such an adorable little sister. Your servant truly does not dare believe it. However, you must be careful in the White Tiger territory. A slightly weak voice suddenly spoke. Bai Yutong was frightened and snapped around. She saw a woman dressed in white looking at her with a gratified expression. The woman held a gourd of wine. There was still a bit of leftover fragrance. Bai Yutong seemed familiar with her. Your servant is Bright Star Daredevil third brother Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu walked over. She was completely without killing intent. Gazing at this adorable little loli, there was not way she could have any killing intent. Can you give this blood-intoxicating aroma to your servant to use? The truth was that after she parted from Su Xing, Xiuxiu still felt unable to compose herself. Thus she stealthily tailed Su Xing. She waited to see the final outcome, to understand this man's true face. Xiuxiu had lived in the White Tiger territory for so long, concealment and tailing were like the back of her hand, so no one noticed her. After what happened, although Xiuxiu did not understand much, she more or less vaguely realized a bit of something. After the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian, the teamwork of the Star Generals had amazed this Wisdom Star again and again because it appeared that those exceptional women at this man Su Xing's side were each unique. Although she did not see Lin Chong, the Hero Star, Leisure Star, and Steadfast Star's formation made Xiuxiu feel disbelief. Especially for the latter, that Steadfast Star surprisingly used her Heaven Earth Dark Yellow skill for this man. The riddle was not solved and had instead become even more mysterious. After she saw Bai Yutong sneak away, Xiuxiu only revealed herself because she was quite fond of this innocent little sister. Elder sister, Bai Yutong shyly said. Xiuxiu showed Bai Yutong no killing intent at all, and the little loli did not sense any danger. On the contrary, she felt that this very feral elder sister in front of her was very cordial. Can you give this blood intoxication aroma to your servant? Of course, if you do not consent, your servant absolutely will not force you. Xiuxiu said. Bai Yutong lowered her head to look at the blood intoxication aroma in her hand, seeming very fond of it, but when she saw Xiuxiu's not so optimistic state of injury, the little loli could not bear it. Looking back and forth several times, the little loli finally decided to open her palm. Elder sister here. Thank you. Xiuxiu stroked Bai Yutong's hair, tenderness appearing in her heart for the first time. Xiuxiu placed the blood intoxication aroma into her mouth and chewed. Having lived in the White Tiger territory for so long among the vegetation, she discovered some grasses were natural medicines for healing wounds. This blood intoxication aroma was a particularly rare kind. It was able to quickly restore blood and congeal wounds, speeding recovery. Although Xiuxiu had ingested many medicines, her injuries were still not completely recovered. Otherwise she would not have made such a request. As she chewed the blood-intoxicating aroma, Xiuxiu's forehead twisted. Although the blood-intoxicating aroma was very good at restoring her circulation, there was a flaw. As this herb's name suggested, it was very painful as it circulated the body. Elder sister, drink this. Bai Yutong held out a white wine bottle. Xiuxiu looked at her and slightly smiled. Without any suspicion about the wine inside the bottle, she drained it in one gulp. After the wine washed down her throat, the pain over her whole body suddenly vanished, making Xiuxiu astonished. Is this your yellow rank wine? Bai Yutong nodded. It was worry-free without a care. Thanks, to have a little sister like you truly is your servant's good luck. Xiuxiu happily said. Bai Yutong lowered her head in embarrassment, suddenly making Xiuxiu feel she was even more adorable. Your servant must repay you. You must have wanted this blood-intoxicating aroma to brew an earth-rank wine, right? Xiuxiu very easily deduced. Although this blood intoxication aroma is good, it is a bit lacking as material for brewing an earth-rank wine. Your servant knows a place. It has many Unkayu wine grasses, and your star beast may be able to find something even better. Are you willing to go together with your servant? Xiuxiu smiled and asked. But Papa will worry about Tang Tang. Bai Yutong said. With your servant protecting you, there is no need to be afraid. If that man truly loves you, then he should not be treating you like a canary in a cage. We are star generals, no sister should rely on a man, you know? Tang Tang, this is our pride. As a naturally battle-crazed star general, Xiuxiu had very hot-bloodedly projected lofty and heroic traits onto the innocent Bai Yutong. Although she heard battle and pride, Tang Tang only half understood. However, she still received her hot-blooded feelings. Did you not want to help do something for your papa? Then this is a good chance. Xiuxiu continued to say. Tangting wants to help papa. Bai Yutong nodded, her expression very serious and earnest. Although her yearning day and night helped all of her elder sisters, the after-effects nevertheless trapped those elder sisters completely in the star nest with no way out. Bai Yutong had seen this, and she was similarly worried. However, a weak, low-ranking star general like her was not like Gongsun Huang, who was strong in magic energy, nor was she as swift of mind as the other sisters. Thus, Bai Yutong did not know what she could do. For that man to be able to have you, he truly is fortunate. Alright, then let us give him a pleasant surprise together. Xiuxiu said. And Xiuxiu tugged Bai Yutong's little hand, and was just about to leave. An arrow stopped her. Along with it was a quite unhappy voice. Daredevil third brother, I still feel that you are upright and frank as a hero. I even thought highly of you, however. I never imagined that you would shamelessly lure Tangtang away. This truly is extremely disappointing. Hua Wanyue gracefully brushed back a lock of her long hair. She gazed calmly and keenly at Xiuxiu. Tangtang, come here now. Hua Wanyue motioned. Mama Wanyue. Bai Yutong happily smiled. Hua Wanyue's expression immediately softened greatly. You left without permission, which will make my lord very worried. If you want to find something, we can help you. Could it be that you do not believe in us? Hero Star, so you too. Your servant never thought that you would surprisingly recognize a contractor. Xiuxiu said casually, bursting into a guffaw. However, Tangtang wants to help Su Xing. You are obstructive and worried. Could it be that you are underestimating your own little sister? Xiuxiu, do not speak so glibly. My lord is very concerned with Tangtang, but he has never viewed Tangtang as a tool to brew wine. No wine is worth Tangtang's safety. Hua Wanyue said indifferently. Tangtang, what is your choice? Will you obediently pamper yourself in your papa's embrace, or will you send him a bottle of wine while he is very tired? Xiuxiu lowered her head and asked. Xiuxiu. Hua Wanyue glared. Tangtang wants to help papa. Bai Yutong lowered her head. This is what a good sister is. Huarong, you should be at ease. With your servant here, she absolutely will be safe. And your formation over there right now is not optimal. If Rat Star Bai Yutong refines her earth rank wine, that will be very beneficial to you, right? Xiuxiu smiled. Xiuxiu, even though my lord saved your life, you nevertheless lead Tangtang astray. I truly am not worth my lord. Hua Wanyue could not be at ease. Although Xiuxiu sounded pleasant, the White Tiger territory was very dangerous. This daredevil third brother's temperament was eccentric. Hua Wanyue was not willing to take a risk. If Su Xing knew that Tangtang was gone, perhaps he would flip the White Tiger territory upside down. Today, so long as I am here, do not think you will have your way. Hua Wanyue shouted. Her bowstring creaked. An arrow fired. Mama Wanyue. Bai Yutong was distressed, evidently not wanting to see the two fight. To attack right in front of such an adorable little sister. This is too dreadful. Your servant also wants to fight you, Hero Star. Xiuxiu was not afraid of any provocation. On the contrary, she already wanted to test herself against the sister who was absolute in bow and spear. Tangtang, rest well for now. Xiuxiu gently said and pushed pressure point. Bai Yutong's eyelids suddenly felt heavy. Mama, don't fight. The little loli muttered and fainted. Hero Star, your servant's true name is Xiuxiu, let us compete. Wanyue obliges. One Hua Wanyue. Hua Wanyue rapidly drew her bow. That arrow was like a meteor, maneuvering for Xiuxiu's flank. Xiuxiu launched her attack even more quickly. She leapt up in an instant. Her speed had been trained in the White Tiger territory to the point of perfection. Her realm to excellence. This maneuver was as fast as a beam of light. Hua Wanyue's archery was very strong. There was no need to doubt this. If she was a million li away, even the strongest martial general would feel absolutely terrified, but at such a close distance, Hua Wanyue's archery could not properly flourish. Let alone that the opponent this time was daredevil third brother Xiuxiu. the wisdom star who trained in the White Tiger territory for so long. Her martial arts realm was very incredible, and even if her body was injured, she was still unleashing such powerful force. She was very clear about the hero star's weakness. She continuously evaded several arrows. The 7 colors goose feather saber spun, and then it slashed downwards. Hua Wanyue used her heaven earth sun moon bow to block it. Against her reactions, Xiuxiu was endlessly impressed. The hero star appeared to be formidable indeed, but since she was the absolute in spear and bow, Xiuxiu's attempt would not finish so simply. She continuously attacked, swinging her saber again and again. The white blade flipped by. Hua Wanyue's body directly backflipped. Her arm felt numb, and the girl's face could not help but show shock. She was somewhat astonished at the power upon Xiuxiu's saber. Hey! With a growl, Xiuxiu already swung her leg towards Hua Wanyue's head as she was stunned. The woman then spun, the heaven earth sun moon bow in her hand also turning into a shield. Once again, she warded off Xiuxiu's kick. While Xiuxiu's assault flowed quick as mercury, Hua Wanyue's display was already far beyond Xiuxiu's anticipation. Although her attacks were not as deadly or swift as before, Xiuxiu would not throw the fight. Each strike was a way to find footing for victory. Hua Wanyue made unimaginable movements again and again. Each step, each movement of her wrist was like a textbook, admirably accurate. As her name implied, she was graceful and lithe. Using movements that were frustratingly rational, Xiuxiu's clearly superior speed nevertheless appeared slow. Bang! A white arrow fired. In the middle of her dodge, Hua Wanyue had surprisingly fired an arrow in that instant. Xiuxiu leaned. The arrow grazed by her body. A graceful smile flit across Hua Wanyue's lips. Swift as lightning, another arrow was fired with even more speed. This one passed by Xiuxiu's cheek, drawing a line of blood. Xiuxiu's saber followed closely behind. Saber light was unsheathed from below, falling like frigid snow. Hua Wanyue was slashed, but when the hero star's body fell backwards, she once again drew her bow and continuously fired at the same time. However, the directions she aimed at nevertheless made Xiuxiu greatly surprised. They were on either side of her, completely away from her. Is this for real? Xiuxiu immediately sensed that there was a reason for Hua Wanyue's complacent grin. The arrows that flew out turned and surprisingly pincer attacked Xiuxiu, as if they had grown eyes. The brilliance of this archery made Xiuxiu very impressed, and this unexpected left and right archery succeeded in stopping Xiuxiu's assault. With no time to think, Xiuxiu's body paused. The 7 colors goose feather saber slashed repeatedly. She gave up on attacking, smashing the incoming arrows to pieces with all her power. A numbing pain issued from her hands. It appeared this power could not be underestimated. Watch dance through the willows. Hua Wanyue raised her hand, stopping in midair. The hero star fully displayed her wonderful and poetic archery, continuously flashing and breaking through space. She instantly fired, as if she was a butterfly among flowers, somersaulting in the air. The arrows continued to spin as they drew odd trajectories, flying towards Xiuxiu. A brilliant willow blossomed in front of her eyes. Xiuxiu did not dare underestimate the hero star's yellow technique. She did not expect the hero star's archery was so formidable. To be able to wield such a perfect realm at such a close-range battle, she was not one bit inferior. With rapt attention, a clear saber light resonated. Xiuxiu brandished the 7 colors goose feather saber, ray after ray of saber light producing waves, completely warding off Hua Wanyue's willow arrow. Yellow rank saber technique. Water ripple 100 turns. A new yellow rank. To surprisingly force her to devise a new yellow rank technique using a bow at close range, Xiuxiu was shocked. Generally speaking, each of the heaven, earth, dark, and yellow techniques of a star general were their own specialty. It was very rare, normally speaking, not more than for 1 or 2, but there were times when at extremely critical moments, a star general would occasionally have an epiphany and create a new technique. However, the creation of a new technique often required dire circumstances. At the same time, it needed significant luck. Xiuxiu had stayed in the White Tiger territory for so long, yet she did not create any second yellow ranks at all. Daredevil third brother finally could discern that the hero star before her eyes indeed had the qualifications to become an arrogantly powerful martial general. She was not the simple archer Xiuxiu had initially thought her to be. Perhaps she was another type of specialized adept. Hua Wanyue continuously soared. She was apparently aware that Xiuxiu's advantages were speed and powerful close-range strength. She made out of the ordinary movements among the trees. Each tree was like a springboard for her. Following her movements, the arrows were endlessly launched. Xiuxiu gave chase, relying on her sharp saber technique to cut down each and every one of the arrows Hua Wanyue fired. Hua Wanyue suddenly turned around, her beautiful eyes especially fervent and resolute. The talisman script hovering around the heaven-earth-sun-moon bow suddenly spun. Dazzling arrows shot out with the ear-splitting speed of thunder, drawing a brilliant trajectory. In an instant, at least 100 arrows were fired. This was another dance through the willows. Hey, two yellow techniques. Xiuxiu felt this was too overexaggerated. As a top-notch heavenly star martial general, to use two yellow techniques in quick succession was honestly surprising. Arrows blotted out the sky, descending like a beautiful storm, more severe than the last time. If you did not dodge, there was only one ending, being inevitably turned into honeycomb. Rumble. The arrows filling the sky ignited blinding fireworks in this small grove. Extreme saber light and magnificent arrow light mixed together, immediately annihilating the place Xiuxiu stood at. Hua Wanyue curled the corner of her lips. This time, she wielded her dance through the willows at its peak. Xiuxiu perhaps could not be so easygoing. Just as she thought that, a giggle entered Hua Wanyue's ears. Amazing, as expected of the strongest arrow among the sisters. Hua Wanyue turned her head back in shock. Xiuxiu grinned from behind her. How? Xiuxiu took a deep breath. Hua Wanyue had underestimated the daredevil third brother's speed. Swaying her body, Xiuxiu suddenly launched her attack, the seven colors goose feather saber in her hand swinging. Hua Wanyue continuously used her bow to block, but this time, Xiuxiu's saber technique had strange changes in direction, breaking Hua Wanyue's thoughts, cutting directly towards Hua Wanyue. Xiuxiu descended, light as a breeze. Against the strongest arrow, your servant's strongest saber is unable to remain aloof, she said. Hua Wanyue clutched her belly, half rising, suddenly launching a high-speed attack. Arrow light suddenly appeared. The arrow this time turned into a net of countless light rays, shooting towards Xiuxiu. From every angle, Xiuxiu was already trapped. However, Xiuxiu still easily broke free of this sudden sneak attack, but Hua Wanyue's intent was not for this. She already arrived right in front of Xiuxiu, taking advantage of this gap. Like a graceful butterfly, the tip of her foot kicked off Xiuxiu's knee. Hua Wanyue then stepped onto Xiuxiu's shoulder. Her slender thighs then spun like drills, and an enormous penetrative force immediately pushed Xiuxiu practically to a knee. Even though she barely resisted, this was hard for Xiuxiu to avoid. I will keep you company. Hua Wanyue's expression was satisfied as she faced Xiuxiu, shooting an arrow down towards her. Bang! The world rang. Dong Junqing watched Xiuxiu forge his fire element sword with his face of concentration, feeling that this man's serious face truly was sexy. Her originally sore and powerless body was even more limp right now. Is something the matter, Junqing? Zhao Hanyan watched her restlessness and asked with concern. Princess Highness, this general really wants to rip his clothes off. Dong Junqing's face blushed in embarrassment. She gazed at Xiuxiu with a face full of beast-like desire. Princess, should we not properly reminisce with him? This is not the meeting that this general had envisioned. Zhao Hanyan could hear the shamelessness in Dong Junqing's words. She lowered her head and feigned embarrassed anger. Junqing, do not misbehave. This is not the time for that. She gazed at Xiuxiu, also enraptured by Xiuxiu's appearance as he continued his flying sword forging. Although he was sometimes on the frivolous side, he always made people feel at ease when he was serious. When Xiuxiu is like that, do you believe Xiuxiu truly will be a beast? Zhao Hanyan sighed. Originally, the Lingyan princess had been a bit jealous, but when she saw Xiuxiu work his heart out for Xiuxiu, That bit of jealousy faded away, turning calm instead. To be honest, at least he was serious with the sisters, and she would not have any regrets at the end of the star duels. This man truly is a flirt. Can it be that he will seduce all the women in these star duels? Dong Junqing twitched her lip. And this idea is not bad. There would be no need to fight the star duels. Zhao Hanyan guffawed. Just at this moment, the entire world suddenly rumbled. Zhao Hanyan and Dong Junqing were taken aback. Gong Sunhuang opened her eyes and blinked. What is happening? Zhao Hanyan flew into the air, apparently spotting the faint signs of battle. The White Tiger territory honestly does not let anyone have proper rest. The Lingyan princess said unhappily. Then have some proper rest, Hanyan. A gentle voice laughed. Zhao Hanyan was delighted to hear this voice. She saw that Xiuxiu was at her side. Has little Lord Husband Xiuxiu finished refining the flying swords? Zhao Hanyan covered her mouth. Xiuxiu rolled his eyes at her. His hand beckoned, and 12 beautiful flying swords appeared. These 12 flying swords were forged from the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian's feathers. The feathers inherently combined the beauty of the clinging heaven Vermilion Jian and the quintessence of its flames together. The resulting flying swords could be said to be shaped gorgeously. The bright flames were burned vigorously, and its curves were like a beauty's, capable of ruining a country. Especially the name of Jian Feather. Zhao Hanyan was quite amazed. Look after Xiuxiu here, I'll go look. Xiuxiu moved. The 12 elegant Jian feathers unfurled. They surrounded Xiuxiu like phoenix feathers, and he suddenly flew in that direction. Ai, it seems this princess has no choice but to recognize this little sister. Zhao Hanyan smiled. Liked it. Because she had never fired her bow so frequently. The Heaven-Earth-Sun-Moon bow in Hero Star Hua Wanyue's hands had practically become a red-hot brand, a pure red line. Xiuxiu even could see that the trajectories of the incoming arrows were changing mid-flight. The instant they fired, they spun continuously. Danger came at her from head-on. Xiuxiu's legs gently moved, her flying shadow crossing against a fierce phantom. The arrows suddenly split into countless more arrows. Each arrow fragment was as red as steel, emitting an unimaginable killing intent. The spread of the arrows covered this area, completely sealing Xiuxiu's escape routes. Another dance through the willows. A third yellow technique. Xiuxiu was shocked. A top-notch star general using 3 yellow techniques was somewhat inconceivable. However, she immediately deduced that Hua Wanyue had ingested rat star by Yutong's wine. Otherwise, 3 consecutive yellow techniques absolutely could not be sustained, even by a top-notch heavenly star. The arrow fragments seemed intelligent, practically tracking Xiuxiu's scent. Each yellow technique of Hero Star Little Li Guang was even more abnormal than the previous. Xiuxiu immediately retreated, continuously stepping back. What was unbelievable was that Hero Star Hua Wanyue this time was completely brilliant. The arrows chased endlessly. Finally, because of the high speed, they completely vanished into the air. If a beast's intuition could sense that terrifying killing intent, Xiuxiu found it unimaginable that even she would be turned into honeycomb before she even knew it. This completely inhibited Xiuxiu's speed. You truly make your servant's blood rush. Xiuxiu smiled and accepted this challenge. This was too interesting. She could feel that the seemingly empty air was already filled with countless arrows spinning with hidden fangs. Gentle contact had the possibility to bring about a chain reaction. What she was uncertain about was if the Hero Star was holding back. Seeing Hero Star Hua Wanyue's fully self-confident, graceful expression, Daredevil third brother was stunned. Hero Star Hua Wanyue paid this no mind and raised her bow, her voice drifting over. Xiuxiu, I am not someone you can underestimate. As the girl spoke, she drew back the bowstring. A crisp twang. The arrow drew an arc, piercing the deathly space between them. The first arrow was merely the Hero Star's friendly greeting. The second arrow was also only a reminder for amicability. Then came the third and fourth. Hero Star Hua Wanyue's barrage speed was becoming faster and faster. These arrows circled around to surround Xiuxiu. Against such a situation, the ending was obvious. Regardless of whether she retreated or advanced, Hero Star Huanyue had already completely sealed Xiuxiu's escape routes. In her perspective, this undoubtedly had already cut off Xiuxiu's arms and legs. Without the advantage of close-range combat, that was a situation that her strongest archery would inevitably dominate. Xiuxiu had no choice but to admit this honestly was a very superb masterpiece, but if this was all, it was not enough. Daredevil Third Brother raised her 7 colors goose feather. The birds carved upon the blade's edge seemed to pulsate and glimmer. The entire forest's world fell silent. This world was in a deathly silence. Huanyue used unprecedented archery to seal Xiuxiu's movements, following a high-speed trajectory to launch herself at the woman. Under Xiuxiu's formidable realm, this kind of archery was beyond even Xiuxiu's expectations. To be able to force her to use that dark technique just by using a bow. Hero Star Huanyue's brows twisted. A stifling atmosphere spread. The Hero Star felt a kind of unprecedented feeling of confusion in her heart. What was the damned feeling? Hero Star Huanyue's expression chilled. As if she was considering activating the 10,000 God-killing arrow to decide the victor through life or death. But gazing at Tang, she was still reluctant. All of a sudden, acceptance, interest, restraint, concentration. Xiuxiu's eyes seemed even more clear. Her foot moved. Xiuxiu had merely taken a step, but this made Hero Star Huanyue take a step back in astonishment. Bang! Although this step appeared relaxed, Xiuxiu was already like a beast baring its fangs. Her hidden killing intent instantly spread. Before Xiuxiu's eyes was a despairing number of arrows. These arrows flew towards their target. An ear-splitting shout pounded their eardrums. Xiuxiu slashed, surprisingly striking down all of the arrows. What powerful force! And immediately afterwards, Xiuxiu lurped, suddenly disappearing from sight. Even Hero Star's hawk-like eyes could not track Xiuxiu's trajectory. What swift speed! Consecutive shocks made Huanyue grit her teeth. The moment Xiuxiu disappeared, a wolf's howl drifted over. Anyone else would have inevitably been torn apart by this sudden and berserk voice. Heavily injured if not dead. Hero Star Huanyue met this howl head-on. She was stubborn and was unwilling to step back again, facing the roar as if it was nothing. Bang! An intense explosion. Xiuxiu's figure appeared. The instant she attacked, her saber hacked. This time, Huanyue easily spun, the Heaven-Earth-Sun-Moon bow in her hand already changing into the star-splitting red jade short spear as she leaned. Knowing that the Heaven-Earth-Sun-Moon bow was unable to block at this moment, Hero Star Huanyue used her other star weapon. Her reactions were very praiseworthy to Xiuxiu. Although she blocked this slash, it made Hero Star Huanyue suffer greatly. The torrential sword chi tore across her body, making Huanyue tumble backwards. Huanyue was nevertheless very tenacious, her figure gracefully correcting in midair, firing her bow in succession. It was merely completely useless against Xiuxiu at this time. Your servant is already satisfied. Xiuxiu smiled, cutting down the arrows. Huanyue did not utter a word. She raised the star-splitting red jade short spear, and decided for a frontal and direct confrontation. Ignoring her skill with the bow and arrow, the absolute in spear and bow Hero Star's inherent spearmanship was very powerful. From that instant of close-range combat, it was obvious she nearly made Xiuxiu stumble. Shaking her head, it appeared that she was unwilling to give up so easily. Xiuxiu would not show her any slight. Her figure immediately bounded over. Hero Star Huanyue's delicate body surprisingly was as agile as a buttfully, her footwork as swift as lightning. She was like a meteor shower, linking together loop after loop of graceful footwork. Her swaying figure had not only evaded Xiuxiu's attack, she also flanked her. Wielding the short spear, she drew a red line. This thrust was exceptionally crafty and elegant. Xiuxiu completely did not expect that Hero Star Huanyue's attack would be surprisingly so abnormal. Suddenly, she was struck by the spear. Her legs immediately stepped backwards to create distance. Easily spinning around, Hero Star Huanyue pressed her attack. Her legs suddenly exerted force, and Xiuxiu's figure once again was abruptly forced into close range. Her body was practically stuck against the ground, drawing a beautiful curve. As her right hand suddenly struck the ground, she borrowed the force to instantly close the distance. Sweeping her leg, she immediately spun in midair, once again kicking to keep up. Xiuxiu restored her normal temp and ferocity, her eyes showing an ice-cold glare, just like a beast's. With such a sharp attack, Xiuxiu surprisingly did not hold back in any way. Close combat could be said to be Daredevil Third Brother's expertise. She would not lose to anyone in this regard. Even if she was still injured, the martial art she trained as she put her life on the line would still subdue anyone. Hua Wanyue's slender legs made a winding chain of loops, already breaking free of Xiuxiu's entanglement. Her spear as leisurely as a butterfly flying through a flower garden. This was the first time Xiuxiu saw such an elegant assault, which was quite incompatible with Xiuxiu's bestial and berserk nature. Out of all of Maiden Mountain's 108 sisters, perhaps only hero star Hua Wanyue was capable of such grace. Thinking rapidly, Xiuxiu nevertheless would not be merciful. After being incited by the dark technique, the beast was even more ferocious. Daredevil Third Brother Xiuxiu was both shocked and delighted. A vicious light flashed through her eyes. That beastly roar unexpectedly had a vague hiss. Completely ignoring the attack directed at herself, the woman's silhouette suddenly grew. Her entire body instantly pounced. Up and down, her whole body was as wide open as a gate, but her attacking punch was surprisingly wrapped in wind pressure. That strike had an abundance of power. Not good. Hua Wanyue's complexion paled. An enormous noise. Hua Wanyue was knocked back by Xiuxiu's punch. The power washing over her body made Hua Wanyue instantly vomit blood. Apologies. Your servant has overdone it. Xiuxiu sobered up, hastily indicating she was apologetic. What is there to apologize about? Hua Wanyue disdainfully said. If we continue to battle, your lord perhaps will be grieved. No more. Your servant is truly very satisfied to have been able to trade blows with the strongest little Li Guang. Raising her head to look behind her, Hua Wanyue saw that Xiuxiu had flashed by carrying Bai Yutong. Put down Tang right now. Hua Wanyue shouted. Just let her do something for you all. She is our sister. Xiuxiu smiled and said. You pervert who loves battle, not every sister enjoys battle as you do. Hua Wanyue showed rare anger. Xiuxiu laughed out loud and looked far away. Your lord has come. Your servant shall leave for now. Say hello to him for your servant. Tang will naturally stay safe. Saying this, Xiuxiu vanished into the forest. Hua Wanyue could still see her faint silhouette. She grit her teeth and drew the 10,000 Li God-killing arrow. But in the end, the hero star relented. Damn it. She lost. Su Xing rushed over quickly. However, the battle had already ended. Hua Wanyue sat cross-legged, the heaven-earth-sun-moon bow in her left hand, the star-splitting red jade spear in her right. Wanyue. Su Xing descended. He saw the girl was a bit beaten. What happened here? Su Xing asked. Xiuxiu kidnapped Tang. Hua Wanyue closed her eyes, as if she did not dare look at him. What? Xiuxiu kidnapped Tang? Su Xing was a bit in disbelief. She does not have any ill intent. That is what I believe. Hua Wanyue opened her eyes, calmly speaking. Seeing Hua Wanyue so calm, Su Xing could think of what had happened. I'll go bring Tang back. Su Xing nodded. He looked at Hua Wanyue, crouched down, and then he stared at the latter. My lord, your face is too close. Hua Wanyue could even smell the scent of the man, and her face blushed. Wanyue, don't stress about victory or defeat. Su Xing could see that her mood was somewhat downcast. It was obvious that after coming to the White Tiger territory, not one thing had been successful. I know. You better go retrieve your daughter. Hua Wanyue shook her head, gracefully playing with a strand of her hair. Su Xing nodded and gave chase. Ingmei, I am still unable to keep up with you. Hua Wanyue sighed. The wind rushing past her ear made Bai Yutong very quickly open her eyes. She seemed to have had a nice nap. The scene Bai Yutong saw after waking up was a fire-red sea of flowers. A sinister scent pervaded the air. as if it was full of allure. The scene before her was somewhat beautiful, making the little lowly stunned. Ah, Mama Wanyue. Bai Yutong suddenly remembered that Mama Wanyue had been fighting with someone. She cried out again and again, but she did not see anyone. The situation facing the little lowly was somewhat scary, and her shoulders trembled. Tang, are you awake? Xiuxiu smiled and walked in. Elder sister Xiuxiu. Why did you call for Mama Wanyue? Xiuxiu teased and asked. And you call me elder sister? Because I am unable to look after you? Bai Yutong innocently answered. Because she is someone Papa loves, and Mama Wanyue cares for me very much, like another mama. The little lowly's thought process was very simple. If they would care for her, and they stood at her papa's side, then they were full of a motherly scent. Can Tang call Xiuxiu Mama? Bai Yutong carefully and also somewhat happily said. Xiuxiu gasped. It would be better to call me elder sister. Your servant is certainly not that man's wife. Pausing, she muttered. Interesting, Hua Wanyue unexpectedly has a lord husband. Tang, do you know this place? Xiuxiu asked. Bai Yutong naturally shook her head. This place is a secret location in the White Tiger territory. Even the demonkin do not know of it. These flowers are named demonic lotus. Do not touch them. Tang feels these demonic lotuses are very strange. Bai Yutong wrinkled her adorable brow. These demonic lotuses can stir your blood, arousing your martial arts capabilities. Xiuxiu said. But you are too little. Right now you cannot feel danger. Tang, do you feel these demonic lotuses can be brewed into wine? Bai Yutong shook her head. Perhaps elder sister Suwen can concoct medicine. And who is elder sister Suwen? Elder sister Suwen is an expert in medicine. Bai Yutong happily gesticulated. Efficacious star divine physician Xiuxiu wrinkled her brow, not daring to believe this. She shook her head, not minding this. Elder sister, what did we come here to do? Bai Yutong asked. The densely packed demonic lotus scent had a particular magnificence. Regardless of whatever it was, encountering something in sufficient quantities would make someone feel shocked. Following a gale, the demonic lotus fluttered, and the air danced with an evil scent, giving one the sort of illusion they were in a hellish paradise, something very, very eerie. Bai Yutong's expression could not help but become distant. There is a demon beast here. Her bile is a perfect ingredient for brewing wine. Xiuxiu drank a gourd of wine. Bai Yutong gasped, however. She could not face any demon beasts. But this demon beast is very formidable. Your servant may not necessarily be able to defeat it either. Xiuxiu grunted. Bai Yutong widened her eyes. Those eyes seemed to say, if you can't defeat it, then why fight it? To be able to see such a cute little sister. Your servant is suddenly very full of energy. Xiuxiu rubbed her palms. She lowered her head and looked at her burning hot palm. And she said so quietly so that Bai Yutong could not hear. My days are numbered. I do not want to leave any regates. Tang, go over there and see if there are any grasses that can be brewed for now. Your servant has already cleaned this place for you. Your servant shall go face that snake. Xiuxiu smiled. Elder sister, be careful. Bai Yutong held out a bottle of worry-free without a care, and a bottle of seemingly drunk and stupefied. Xiuxiu slightly smiled and took them. Only when Bai Yutong reached a safe range did she move out. In the sea of flowers of this demonic lotus cave, there was a blood-colored pool. There was an evil fragrance wafting about above it. And inside this pool dwelled a prehistoric demon python. This python was named Nine Fragrances Python. In truth, its cultivation was not high, but because it had soaked among the demonic lotuses for so long, it unwittingly and unexpectedly emitted a powerful presence. This made Xiuxiu feel it was problematic. Xiuxiu and the Nine Fragrances Python had fought several times, but she did not win a single time. And this time, Daredevil Third Brother was determined to win. The pool wildly frothed, and a dark red serpent burst out from the pool. Its body was at least 300 feet long. Its body was thick enough to need 2 people to wrap around it. The blood-colored snakeskin was as glossy as a mirror, blooming the demonic lotus, and it could move over any terrain as if it was flying. The dark red flower patterns spiraling up along its body from its tail concentrated into a strange flower design atop its head. The blossoming buds among the flower markings were strange 7-colored flowers. These 7-colored lotuses were also called 9 fragrances lotuses. It possessed tart, sweet, repulsive, bitter, pungent, spicy, sour, vomit, and flaky 2 scents, which is where it got its name. Regardless of whether it was refined as a pill or into medicine, this was a perfect material rarely seen in the world. The 9 fragrances python spotted Xiuxiu and flicked its snake tongue, as if it was disdaining and ridiculing her as it raised its head. Xiuxiu took a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, Xiuxiu had already closed the distance. She raised the 7 colors goosefeather saber in her hand, mercilessly chopping at the 9 fragrances python's head. It appeared that Xiuxiu was very familiar with the 9 fragrances python. Her attack was direct and deadly, aimed at striking the 9 fragrances lotuses of the 9 fragrances python. So long as the 9 fragrances lotus received damage, the 9 fragrances python's power would be debilitated. If she struck anywhere else, of course it would be enough to bring the 9 fragrances python certain injury, but the effectiveness would not be as obvious as attacking its weak spots. The 9 fragrances python suddenly spun its head around, showing a face of glittering, eerie crimson light. It then opened its mouth and spat a shimmering and blinding dark red blade light. This red blade light collided with Xiuxiu's saber. The 9 fragrances python angrily hissed. The 9 fragrances lotus on its forehead released a scent. The scent dispersed, swallowing Xiuxiu in that instant like a net. In actuality, the 9 fragrance python's 9 fragrances lotus were its trump cards. Each scent was capable of different effects. The dry smell could make a person's whole body hurt, thus reducing their desire to fight. Xiuxiu clearly knew and was indifferent as her figure suddenly appeared. She sneered, ingesting the worry-free without a care. This scent had been perfectly inhibited. The 9 fragrances python had not expected this. Xiuxiu's 7 colors goosefeather saber brought an air-shattering whistle and a sudden astral wind. She ruthlessly hacked into the 9 fragrances python's body, continuously sinking deeper. Red light practically severed this body in 2. Boom! The 9 fragrances python seemed to have been struck by thunder. Its body suddenly jolted, and it released a scream. Its snake tail flung heavily towards Xiuxiu. Even without any abilities, just the approaching force could not be underestimated. Just the wind the snake tail evoked blew Xiuxiu away. Seizing this instant she was disoriented. The 9 fragrances python suddenly rushed over, tightly constricting Xiuxiu like rope. Xiuxiu's face paled. She was unable to break free, and the 9 fragrances python opened its mouth to show a sinister, ugly maw. It wanted to chew apart this woman that disturbed it. Xiuxiu struggled free from the 9 fragrances python's constriction. The daredevil third brother fiercely pounced forth, a frightening saber light blossoming at her hand. A yellow technique. The 9 fragrances python aired in its reckoning of Xiuxiu's battle strength. It once again unleashed a ray of dark red saber light. Xiuxiu's saber tore it apart, and her blade cut open the 9 fragrances python's flesh. This slash did not end yet, for it immediately transitioned into a dark technique. It left the 9 fragrances python screaming endlessly. When the next slash approached, the 9 fragments python knew it was in danger. Seeing that its situation was not favorable, it immediately leapt, escaping and pulling a certain distance away from Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu lost her chance to slay this 9 fragrances python. Her heart could not help but feel that this was somewhat of a pity, but this python was injured. Its strength was debilitated. To kill it was actually no longer an impossible task. Xiuxiu did not hesitate. She kicked off the ground and soared up, rushing towards the 9 fragrances python. The 9 fragrances python glared fixedly at Xiuxiu. Its red and black pupils were like bright lights in the dark night. The red moss and lotus flowers covering its body swayed from time to time, bringing a rustling wind. Because of the scent of the demonic lotuses, the 9 fragrances python possessed the martial capabilities to fight off a martial general. Its tail waved with astonishing power. Its body had an enormous wound, as if it had been ripped open by some sort of immense force. Blood flowed freely from the wound, dripping onto the ground, forming puddles. The 9 Fragrances python opened its mouth, releasing a scent from the 9 Fragrances lotuses. It was furious. Its heart was completely full of hatred. It flicked its tongue quickly, itching to slowly chew apart this woman that was even more demonic than itself, savoring the meal. Xiuxiu had already deeply comprehended combat against an archer in her battle with Hua Wanyue, and the 9 Fragrances python's attack was no different. That tail was like an arrow, so Xiuxiu easily evaded them. Just as Xiuxiu once again rushed in front of it, it suddenly twisted its body. Its giant snake tail smashed downwards. Xiuxiu heard a whoosh. A gale blew by, and immediately afterwards, the light above her head dimmed. A ferocious power like Mount Tai bore down upon her. Xiuxiu immediately lowered her body, and then she flashed to her left. With a loud boom, the 9 Fragrances python's tail passed by her body, slamming heavily against the pond. Suddenly, red water splashed everywhere, turning the air turbid and eerie. The strike missed. The 9 Fragrances python did not give Xiuxiu any chance to catch her breath. It immediately began its second wave of attacks, opening its mouth wide to suck in the water. It then spat out a thick blast of water, screeching like a sharp blade. With bared fangs, it pounced toward Xiuxiu with shocking power. But Xiuxiu was already familiar with this. She spun around and evaded. This time, Daredevil Third Brother's expression was already not as frightening as before. The 9 Fragrances python suddenly sensed danger. Then, Xiuxiu flashed behind it. Its tail ached endlessly, and its eyes turned back to see that Xiuxiu's blade had already pierced through its tail. At the same time, it was greatly enraged. Xiuxiu took the opportunity to approach, her blade tip hacking open the 9 Fragrances python's demonic lotuses. Immediately, the 9 Fragrances python's body was torn open with a wound dripping with blood. The 9 Fragrances python roared and coiled its body. Its powerful strength forced Xiuxiu back. The 9 Fragrances python gave chase with all its strength, spitting out a jet of red water. Then, its next scent that could confuse people spilled forth from the 9 Fragrances lotuses. Xiuxiu chuckled. The next second, a dark technique wolf howled 10,000ly, then passionately kissed the 9 Fragrances python. Her newly created yellow rank saber technique ripple blossomed around her, resisting all attacks. The 9 Fragrances python simply did not dare believe that the woman in front of it was the same as before. The 9 Fragrances python's snakeskin will make very valuable material for clothes. Xiuxiu licked her lips, raising her 7 colors goose feather saber. Next is... Before she finished, Xiuxiu moved as fast as lightning, scuttling to the 9 Fragrances python's head in an instant. She stepped directly on its face. It was a pity that before the 9 Fragrances python could react, following a snapping sound, its entire body was suddenly flung. In the end, it was a ferocious demon beast. Already no longer caring for the intense pain racking its body from the demonic lotuses, the 9 Fragrances python suddenly opened its mouth and sprayed a dark purple fog. A blue wind rolled over a range of 2 zhang. The entire cave quaked, as if in a dream world. Far to the side, Bai Yutong watched this fantastical scene. Suddenly, her eyes squinted even further. The 9 Fragrances python again emitted its fragrance. Xiuxiu did not dare sample it, quickly withdrawing. Then she leapt high up, a cloud of killing intent lingering around her body, as if protecting her. Her body flipped in the air, already aiming her knees as she descended. She smashed heavily into the stupefied 9 Fragrances python's head. Pop! Xiuxiu's knees struck home, and a punch made the 9 Fragrances python's breath become a cry. Completely not giving the 9 Fragrances python any time to cry, Xiuxiu now once again sunk into her battle frenzy. Perhaps it was because of the demonic lotus's scent, or perhaps she was resolved to sacrifice herself for the kill. The current Daredevil Third Brother was truly in an all-out battle. She became incomparably fearsome, like a demon god. Her calm face no longer had any ripples, and the wretched 9 Fragrances python could not make her feel any pity. Her actions became even more deadly. Xiuxiu's body suddenly spun in midair, slashing her saber downwards with a fearsome whistle. The heavy slash cut into the still screaming head of the 9 fragrances python. Suddenly, enormous directly cut downwards, producing a giant hole. Blood spattered out, and the 9 fragrances python writhed in pain as it flew into further rage. Xiuxiu calmly retreated to avoid being struck. The 9 fragrances python began to gather power. A scarlet light gathered in the 9 fragrances python's mouth and became a bright flame. This flame assumed a blade's form. The sword of fire in the 9 fragrances python's mouth was abnormally swift, slicing like a wild storm. Xiuxiu was like a whirlwind. In an instant, she had raised her speed to a stupefying level. Her slender figure contained fighting strength that was absolutely incongruous with her appearance. The 7 colors goose feather saber in her hand flashed a blinding cold light. She crossed the distance between them in several breaths' time. Because of her high-speed movements, the 7 colors goose feather saber's cold light was already forming a straight line, carrying a frightening sharp and discordant sound. The 9 fragrances python was terrified. It never imagined that the woman it had faced so many times before would surprisingly show such a savage face. For a time, it felt that it was not her opponent. The flaming weapon in its mouth suddenly was brandished. Unable to deal with any more, it unleashed its full power in an attempt to obstruct Xiuxiu. With such a strong attack, even if its defenses could not stop the enemy, the tail-leaking blood wielded an even stronger defense, becoming a shield. At the same time, a scent wafted out. This time, the scent protected the 9 fragrances python's whole body, turning it as hard as rock. Xiuxiu was not charging in a straight line as it imagined, let alone charge into the flame weapons it breathed. Only then did the 9 fragrances python realize that it was thoroughly at a disadvantage against this everyday opponent. In their competitions before, it should have already understood that the woman in front of it possessed a bestial strength that did not match her appearance at all. After drinking Bai Yutong's wine, Xiuxiu had obtained an all-around increase to her martial arts skills. In a single breath, Xiuxiu's body shuddered 3 times, shaking left and right. The 7 colors goose feather sabe's light rays drew astonishing trajectories in the air. The instant they drew close, Xiuxiu's body abruptly ducked, shifting her center of gravity and increasing her speed. As if she was a cyclone, Xiuxiu surprisingly used only her own high speed to circle around behind the 9 fragrances python's body. The 7 colors goose feather saber in her hand cut against the 9 fragrances python's profoundly glossy body. The high-speed assault's clash against the snake's defenses let out a chilling screech. In an instant, she had completely looped around that 9 fragrances python, her weapons carving a complete circle. When she stopped again, Xiuxiu already was more than 2 zhang away from the 9 fragrances python, that fanatical expression still upon her face. In Hua Wanyue's words, the daredevil third brother was very abnormal in battle. The sturdy skin of the 9 fragrances python behind her let out ear-piercing cracking sounds. It divided cleanly down the middle. Bang bang. It surprisingly split open. The 9 fragrances python could not last much longer. It was completely covered in red. Humiliation and fury had already completely burned away its rationality. The 9 fragrances python's whole body abruptly glowed a burning red color. It charged Xiuxiu, an enormous wind pressure spilling out of its mouth. Xiuxiu did not dodge this time. She was very aware that the 9 fragrances python's assault this time was a type of wide-area attack. It carried an even greater wind pressure. Xiuxiu had no certainty she could completely evade this, however, she adopted the most surprising maneuver. Her right hand suddenly struck at the 9 fragrances python's demonic lotus. With a ding sound, Xiuxiu already borrowed this enormous impulse to draw a perfect backflip in midair. When she landed, she was already 3 zhang away. Her right hand shook. The 7 colors goose feather saber was nearly dislodged, and her hand shuddered endlessly. Very clearly, the intense collision from the 9 fragrances python's attack just now was very taxing. Roar! The 9 fragrances python bellowed, madly flinging its tail and spitting out saber light. Xiuxiu's body was straight as a pencil. Her right hand suddenly clenched, and the murderous aura over her whole body slowly gathered. Xiuxiu's body gradually manifested a dancing hurricane. Continuous battles made Xiuxiu exceptionally exhausted. She was somewhat unable to even use an earth rank, but combat would never bring Daredevil third brother a burden. On the contrary, the Wisdom Star lived for battle. Xiuxiu instantly initiated an attack. Her whole body carried a whirlwind, increasing her speed. Already, she plunged into the 9 Fragrances python's chest. In the interval while the 9 Fragrances python flung its tail about, she suddenly brandished her hand and seized the tail. When she took hold of the tail, it let out a wretched scream. The 9 Fragrances python was surprisingly flung against the cliffs by Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu and the 9 Fragrances python's battle made Bewitching flabbergasted. And that surging gale and demonic scent whipped wildly. Finally, Bewitching was unable to last and nearly fainted over. Tang tang. A voice suddenly called. Bewitching turned her head back, pleasantly surprised to see Xiuxiu Papa. Xiuxiu hugged her tight. I heard from Wanyue. From now on, you can't run off on your own. But Tang Tang found so many materials. Bewitching's happy little face blushed. Seeing her joyous expression, Xiuxiu could not be angry. Xiuxiu then spotted the battle inside the cave. Papa, go help elder sister Xiuxiu. Bewitching was worried. She's fine, Xiuxiu said. The 9 Fragrances python's attack became increasingly frenzied, indicating it was increasingly unable to fend off the Daredevil third brother. When Daredevil third brother took completely hold of the battle's tempo, everything the 9 Fragrances python had already became futile. Xiuxiu began to attack endlessly, gradually seizing the advantage. The 9 Fragrances python was enraged in grief, using every ability it had. It suddenly spotted Xiuxiu. This demon beast had intelligence, but it did not recognize this man as having come to its aid. Seeing that there was still a supervoid cultivator still standing to the side like a tiger biding its time, the 9 Fragrances python was in thorough despair. It began to writhe violently. I will make you pay the price. The 9 Fragrances python shouted in its mind. The 9 Fragrances lotuses suddenly emitted a scent. Xiuxiu ignored this, easily evading, but she immediately miscalculated. This time, the 9 Fragrances python charged over with full power, facing that sharp blade head-on. Xiuxiu was taken aback, slashing into the 9 Fragrances python's head. But the 9 Fragrances python was already finished. On the contrary, the 9 Fragrances lotuses surprisingly bloomed. A strange, alluring scent wafted, a never-before-smelt 10th scent. Not good. Xiuxiu was shocked. 1. How odd, right arrow curving left 2. Again, odd for a scent. Detecting the odor of the 10th scent, Xiuxiu automatically activated the heart-like mirror absolute sincerity soul technique. But the 9 Fragrances python was a prehistoric, ancient demon beast. It lived eating demonic lotuses year-round, each droplet of blood brimmed with a concentrated aphrodisiac. This was far from comparison with that dragon back in Flower Dragon Cave. The 10th scent wafted, digging into his pores. Before Xiuxiu could even use it, he suddenly felt desire permeate every cell in his body. He immediately cursed. Everything that happened next was already beyond what Xiuxiu himself could control. At the same time, Daredevil third brother Xiuxiu had also fallen to lust. She was drawn into Xiuxiu's embrace, and her last shred of clarity mysteriously disappeared against that man's surging manly chi. The two of them were stuck to each other like glue, deep kissing, sucking at each other's saliva. Xiuxiu's top fell to the ground, and what bound her breasts was not the normal underwear but a white silk wrap, with some leftover blood SDLL on its surface. The two of them were still vaguely conscious, but their bodies had already stopped listening to them. Xiuxiu's hand grabbed Xiuxiu's plump breast and kneaded it. His other hand quickly slipped past her bottom wear and wandered along her straight, jade legs. Beautiful moans unimaginably poured out from Daredevil third brother's throat. The wild and unrestrained Xiuxiu right now was like an existence that enticed all things. Her white binding was removed, and her white breasts were fondled wantonly by Xiuxiu. He squeezed them into every kind of shape, making Xiuxiu's eyes water. Her hands wandered around Xiuxiu's groin. Under their lust, The two of them did not fondle each other for long. Very quickly, they were completely naked, indulging completely in one another. Xiuxiu growled, pouncing onto Xiuxiu like a beast. Then she spread her legs and sat down, inserting little Xiuxiu into paradise. Having trained in the White Tiger territory for so long, Xiuxiu believed she had tasted countless torments. Regarding wounds, she was already accustomed to them, but when this man's thing entered her body, an unprecedented feeling washed over her whole body. Her heart seemed to fill with something, leaving her satisfied enough to die content. Xiuxiu opened her red lips, breathing out her hot breath. Her hands gripped Xiuxiu's shoulders, and her narrow, unfocused eyes stared at Xiuxiu, making him feel loving towards her. Her lower body automatically rose and fell. Each time he entered and left her stamen, an electric current seemed to flow through her whole body, making Xiuxiu unable to help but let out the most beautiful moan in the world. Perhaps this was what was meant by dying happy. Censorship. Xiuxiu slowly regained his consciousness. He did not know how much time had passed. He seemed to have had a fantastic wet dream. Wisdom star Xiuxiu? No way. Xiuxiu's eyes shot open as if he had been doused by ice water. However, who he saw was not Xiuxiu, but steadfast star general of double spears Dong Junqing instead. She straddled his body and bounced up and down. The pleasure of his lower body nearly made Xiuxiu's mind go blank. Ah, you finally woke up? Ah, almost, this general is almost. Dong Junqing's hands gripped Xiuxiu. She launched a storm-like offensive, not needing even a moment to make Xiuxiu unleash a flood. 3 Dong Junqing nipped Xiuxiu's earlobe. Her voice as alluring as a temptress, satisfied. Princess said that you had no sex drive because of what happened to Xiu, but it seems you are just a beast. Junqing. Xiuxiu sighed. It's fine as long as it's you. He had imagined something happened between him and Xiuxiu. Xiuxiu felt a chill in his limbs. This absolutely was not disdain, rather, because of Daredevil Third Brother's overbearing personality. Losing her virginity would probably cause her to go berserk on Xiuxiu. Dong Junqing's smile became even more evil. This general misspoke just now. What? You are not a beast. Before Xiuxiu could nod in gratitude, Dong Junqing then cut him down again. You are completely worse than a beast, to unexpectedly take the chastity of even the wisdom star. This general is truly impressed. What? Xiuxiu's mouth hung agape. Dong Junqing motioned with her lips, hinting. Following her direction, Xiuxiu spotted in a pool not far away a young woman dressed in a purple skirt. She was none other than Zhao Hanyan. And Zhao Hanyan was helping another woman clean her body using the pool water. Seeing Xiuxiu's gaze, Zhao Hanyan seemingly smiled. So it was like this. While Xiuxiu and Xiuxiu were having sex, Zhao Hanyan and Dong Junqing caught up. The scene they saw was, in Dong Junqing's words, the pinnacle of shamelessness. Bai Yutong had fainted nearby. Xiuxiu straddled Xiuxiu, the two of them absolutely threadbare, tightly wound around each other. The demonic lotuses inside the cave blossomed, their scent pervasive. The crimson flowers and crimson waters mixed together, just like a girl's first time, lovely and alluring to the bone. Zhao Hanyan was indeed stupefied, however. She could see that Xiuxiu and Xiuxiu had lost all reason, captivated by a peculiar scent. Because she did not know how strong this scent was, Zhao Hanyan did not dare advance. She could only wait until Xiuxiu and Xiuxiu finished with their intercourse before she dared approach. Afterwards, Dong Junqing saw that little Xiuxiu was still restless, so she used her mouth to coax the snake from its cave, and then she impatiently started her turn. However, Zhao Hanyan was the great Liang's princess after all. She was not as unbridled as Dong Junqing. First of all, she looked after the very debilitated Xiuxiu. Be proud. You were surprisingly able to obtain the Daredevil Third Brother's body. How about it? Take her into your harem. This general is very eager to taste her flavor. Dong Junqing licked Xiuxiu's chest, a charming seduction. Morals, Junqing, Xiuxiu advised. Dong Junqing guffawed. This general's morals have long already been sold to you. Let's get up for now. When Wan Yue and the others get here and see this, Xiuxiu awkwardly said. They are already here, but they stood guard outside. Little Li Guang Huarong. Is it possible this erotic scene aroused you? Dong Junqing shouted towards the outside. From outside the cave came the reply, in the form of a cold and disdainful snort. Xiuxiu chuckled and hid his embarrassment. The two of them tidied their clothes, and Dong Junqing said as an aside, "This general noticed that your hickeys are even more intense than before. Is it because you ingested something here? Something with a very powerful aphrodisiac effect?" "Is that so?" Xiuxiu tested his internal energies. As expected, he sensed that an indescribable emptiness had gathered at his dantian. "Don't think about it. Let's go see how Xiuxiu is doing first. Is she awake?" Xiuxiu worriedly said. Dong Junqing narrowed her eyes as she stared at Xiuxiu, an expression that was very eager to see what would happen next. In fact, Xiuxiu had already awakened. However, the limpness in her whole body made Zhao Hanyan help wash her. When she saw Xiuxiu approach, she was not furious as he had imagined, and neither was she bashful. She acted as if nothing had happened. Xiuxiu merely stared at Xiuxiu, her pure and feral eyes as wild as before. Zhao Hanyan was not idle as she helped wash Xiuxiu's body. She had nagged about Xiuxiu's good points, the purpose of which was to lessen the fury Xiuxiu would feel towards Xiuxiu after losing her virginity. The two stared at each other for a while, as if they had many things to say. Finally, Xiuxiu extended his hand, saying only, "Xiuxiu, become my wife." 1. Right arrow curving left 2. The party just has to ruin the fun. Right arrow curving left 3. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.